Hey, amazing viewers! Thanks for clicking on Ben 10 What If. Today's special feature is What If Ben 10 was raised by Optimus Prime. Your support through likes, shares, and subscriptions helps us reach more story lovers around the world. Thank you for being part of this community. Now, let's escape into this wonderful story. Chapter 1, The Metal Guardian. The ground shook as 10-year-old Ben Tennyson ducked behind a half-collapsed wall. Explosions lit up the night sky, casting strange shadows across the debris-strewn street. This wasn't how his summer vacation was supposed to go. One minute he'd been hiking with Grandpa Max and Gwen near that weird cave with the glowing crystals, and the next, chaos. What are those things? Ben whispered to himself, peering over the crumbling concrete at the massive metal titans clashing in the distance. They looked like robots, but moved with the fluidity of living creatures. The larger ones stood nearly 5 stories tall, their bodies transforming between humanoid shapes and vehicles with impossible speed. The red and blue one smashed its fist into a gray one with a spiked helmet, sending it crashing into what remained of a gas station. "We cannot let Megatron secure the dimensional anomaly, Autobots," the red and blue robot's voice boomed across the battlefield. "The humans of this reality must be protected." Ben's heart hammered in his chest. This wasn't just some random robot fight, they were talking about dimensions and realities. Had he somehow ended up in another world? Grandpa Max had told stories about aliens and other dimensions, but Ben had always assumed they were just that, stories. A stray energy blast struck the wall above Ben's head, showering him with dust and debris. He coughed, momentarily revealing his position. "Human life form detected," a mechanical voice stated flatly. Ben looked up to see a sleek, silver robot with red eyes staring down at him. Its arm transformed into some kind of cannon, the barrel glowing with building energy. "Lord Megatron will want to examine this specimen." Ben scrambled backward, but there was nowhere to run. The robot reached for him with metal fingers the size of baseball bats. A yellow blur slammed into the silver robot, sending it crashing into a nearby building. The newcomer, a smaller yellow robot with blue eyes, beeped and whirred urgently at Ben, gesturing for him to run. "I don't understand," Ben started, but stopped when he saw the silver robot recovering, raising its weapon. The yellow robot shoved Ben aside just as a purple energy blast tore through the air where he'd been standing. The blast caught the yellow robot in the shoulder, sending sparks flying as it staggered backward. "Bumblebee." The powerful voice belonged to the red and blue Titan, who was now charging toward them. "Protect the human." Ben didn't need any more encouragement. He ran as fast as his legs would carry him, weaving through the battlefield as metal giants clashed overhead. A massive explosion behind him lifted him off his feet, hurling him through the air. His head slammed against something hard, and the world around him swirled into darkness. "The dimensional rift is closing, Optimus." The voice penetrated the fog in Ben's mind as consciousness slowly returned. Whatever powered it seems to have burned out. And Megatron? Retreated with the Decepticons. Looks like they got what they came for, most of the energon crystals from the anomaly site. Ben opened his eyes to find himself cradled in a giant metal hand. The red and blue robot, Optimus, apparently, held him with surprising gentleness. Around them stood several other robots of varying sizes and colors, all watching him with glowing blue eyes. "Are you functional, young one?" Optimus asked, his voice softer now but still resonating with authority. Ben tried to sit up, wincing at the throbbing in his head. "I think so." "Where am I? Who are you guys?" "My name is Optimus Prime, leader of the Autobots. We are autonomous robotic organisms from the planet Cybertron." He gestured to the others. "This is Ratchet, our medical officer. Ironhide, our weapons specialist. Bumblebee, our scout. And Jazz, my lieutenant." "Cool," Ben breathed, momentarily forgetting his predicament in the face of actual aliens. "I'm Ben. Ben Tennyson." Ben Tennyson, Optimus repeated carefully. "I regret that you have been caught in our conflict. The Decepticons, led by Megatron, came to this location seeking energon signatures that appeared during a dimensional disturbance. Dimensional disturbance? Ben's eyes widened as memories flooded back. The cave. Me and Grandpa Max and my cousin Gwen were exploring this weird glowing cave, and then everything went crazy. There was this bright light and, he looked around frantically. Where are they? Where's Grandpa Max and Gwen? The robots exchanged glances, and even with their alien faces, Ben could read concern. We detected only one human life signature near the anomaly, yours, Ratchet said, stepping forward with a device that emitted a scanning beam over Ben. And my readings indicate you've been exposed to significant transdimensional energy. What's that mean? Ben asked, dread building in his stomach. Optimus Prime's expression somehow softened despite being made of metal. It means, young Ben, that you may have been transported here from another reality. And now that the dimensional rift has closed. Ben's chest tightened. I'm stuck here. But what about my family? What about going home? Ratchet will continue studying the energy signatures, Optimus assured him. If there is a way to return you to your dimension, we will find it. And until then? Ben asked, trying to keep his voice from cracking. Optimus looked to his team, then back to Ben. Until then, you will remain under our protection. The Decepticons have seen you, and Megatron may believe you have knowledge of the dimensional energies. So I'm staying with giant robots? Despite everything, Ben couldn't help but feel a spark of excitement at the thought. Autobots, Ironhide corrected gruffly. And this ain't no sparkling daycare, Prime. The base is no place for a human youngling. Nevertheless, Optimus responded firmly, we cannot abandon him to this unfamiliar world. The Autobots protect all sentient life, that is our code. Ben looked up at the towering figure of Optimus Prime, seeing something in those glowing blue eyes that reminded him of his grandfather, strength, wisdom, and kindness all at once. I won't be trouble, Ben promised. And maybe I can help somehow. Bumblebee let out a series of encouraging beeps, causing Ben to look at him curiously. His vocal processors were damaged in battle, Ratchet explained. But he seems to have taken a liking to you. Yeah, thanks for saving me back there, Ben said to the yellow Autobot, who responded with a thumbs-up gesture that seemed strangely human. It is settled then, Optimus declared. Ben Tennyson will remain with the Autobots until we can find a way to return him to his proper dimension. Autobots, roll out. As Optimus transformed into a massive semi-truck, with Ben carefully placed in the cab, the boy pressed his hand against the window and watched the battlefield recede behind them. He fought back tears, thinking of Grandpa Max and Gwen. Were they searching for him? Did they even know what happened? I will not deceive you, Ben, Optimus's voice came through the truck speakers. The path ahead may be difficult. But know this, as long as you are under my protection, you will never face these challenges alone. Ben nodded, wiping his eyes with his sleeve. Thanks, Optimus. I guess we're stuck with each other for now. Indeed. Something like warmth colored the Autobot leader's voice. Perhaps fate has brought us together for a purpose we do not yet understand. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. The Autobot base, a massive abandoned missile silo, became Ben's new home. Ratchet converted a storage room into living quarters, complete with a bed, desk, and small bathroom. Jazz rigged up an entertainment system, while Ironhide grudgingly installed security measures suitable for fragile organics. Bumblebee proved to be Ben's most constant companion, communicating through a combination of beeps, radio clips, and charades that Ben quickly learned to interpret. But it was Optimus Prime who truly became Ben's anchor in this strange new world. The Autobot leader took his responsibility as Ben's guardian seriously, learning about human needs and development with the same dedication he applied to military strategy. Your educational development cannot be neglected, Optimus declared one morning, 3 months after Ben's arrival. I have downloaded appropriate curriculum materials for a human of your age. Ben groaned, slumping in the oversized chair Ratchet had constructed for him in the main command center. Do I have to? It's not like I'm going to regular school anyway. Knowledge is the right of all sentient beings, Optimus replied, his tone gentle but firm. And a sharp mind is as valuable a weapon as any blaster. Fine, Ben sighed dramatically. But can we do combat training after? Ironhide said he might show me how to use the targeting system on the small pulse rifles. Optimus's optics narrowed slightly. Studies first. Then we shall see about appropriate training. This became their routine, mornings spent on human education, afternoons on what Optimus called practical survival skills. Ben learned basic first aid, navigation, communications, and yes, eventually, how to defend himself. Optimus was careful to balance Ben's natural enthusiasm for the more exciting aspects of Autobot life with necessary structure and discipline. Not everyone approved of the arrangement. 6 months into Ben's stay, an Autobot named Ultra Magnus arrived from a long-range mission, his reaction to finding a human child living among them less than positive. This is highly irregular, Optimus, Ultra Magnus said during a command meeting that Ben wasn't supposed to be overhearing. He pressed himself against the wall outside the door, straining to listen. The human child should be with his own kind. The dimensional rift remains closed, Optimus countered calmly. And Ratchet's attempts to recreate it have been unsuccessful. Ben Tennyson has no own kind in this reality. Then place him with human authorities, Ultra Magnus insisted. Our war is no place for a child. And how would you explain his sudden appearance? Ironhide's gruff voice joined in. The humans of this reality have no knowledge of Cybertronians or dimensional travel. The boy would be treated as a lab specimen. Furthermore, Ratchet added, the residual dimensional energy in his cellular structure requires monitoring. There could be long-term effects we cannot predict. A pause followed, and Ben held his breath. The child stays, Optimus finally declared, his tone leaving no room for argument. He is under my protection and my responsibility. This discussion is concluded. Ben scurried away before the meeting ended, a warm feeling spreading through his chest despite the seriousness of the conversation. They wanted him here. They were protecting him. Even grumpy Ironhide had defended his place among them. That night, as Ben lay in bed staring at the ceiling of his room, Optimus knocked on his door, a gentle tap that still managed to shake the walls slightly. Enter, Ben called out, sitting up. Optimus ducked through the doorway, his massive frame filling the space. He'd learned to move carefully around Ben's quarters, mindful of his size. I sense you have been troubled today, the Autobot leader said, settling down to bring his face closer to Ben's level. Ben shrugged, picking at a loose thread on his blanket. I heard Ultra Magnus. About me not belonging here. Optimus nodded slowly. I suspected as much. Ultra Magnus is concerned with protocol and traditional Autobot ways. His perspective is not invalid, merely incomplete. Do you think he's right? That I should be with humans instead? What I think, Optimus said carefully, is that circumstances have placed you in an extraordinary position. And in my many cycles of existence, I have learned that it is not where one comes from that defines them, but what they choose to do with the path they are given. He extended a massive finger, gently resting it on Ben's shoulder. You have shown remarkable resilience and courage, Ben Tennyson. You have earned your place among us not by birth, but by character. Ben blinked back unexpected tears. I miss my family, he admitted. But, you guys are kind of becoming family too. Is that weird? Not at all, Optimus replied, his optics glowing warmly. Family is not defined merely by energon, or in your case, blood. It is defined by bond. By choice. By standing together through challenges and victories alike. So, you're like my robot dad now? Ben asked with a small smile. Optimus seemed to consider this for a moment. I believe guardian is the term I prefer. But the sentiment is understood and appreciated. That night marked a turning point for Ben. He would continue to hope for a way home, continue to miss Grandpa Max and Gwen fiercely. But he also began to truly embrace his place among the Autobots, not just as someone they protected, but as someone who belonged. "Get down!" Ben shouted, diving behind a stack of shipping containers as laser fire scorched the air above him. 6 years had passed since that fateful dimensional accident. Ben Tennyson was no longer a lost child but a 16-year-old who had grown up amid an interstellar war. Currently, he was pinned down at the port of Oakland with Bumblebee during what should have been a routine reconnaissance mission. "I need cover fire to reach that crane," Ben called out, checking the custom energy pistol Ironhide had designed for him. It was smaller than Autobot weapons but packed enough punch to stagger a Decepticon scout. Bumblebee beeped affirmatively, transforming his arm into a cannon and laying down suppressive fire at the 2 Decepticon drones advancing on their position. Ben counted to 3, then sprinted across the exposed dock, sliding the last few feet behind the base of a massive loading crane. "That's breakdown and knockout over by the freighter," Ben muttered into his comm unit, a device integrated into a watch-like band on his wrist. "They're after those tech shipments Optimus flagged." "Hold position, Ben," Optimus's voice came through clearly. "Ironhide and Jazz are en route to your location. Do not engage Decepticons of that class directly." Ben rolled his eyes. Even after 6 years of training, even after countless missions where he'd proven himself, Optimus still treated him with kid gloves sometimes. "Copy that," he replied anyway. Arguing with Optimus during an op never ended well. Bumblebee took a hit from Knockout's Energon prod, electricity crackling across his yellow frame as he stumbled backward. The Decepticon medic advanced, his red finish gleaming in the moonlight. Well, if it isn't Optimus's pet human," Knockout called out, having spotted Ben's position. "Lord Megatron will be pleased when I bring him your head as a trophy." "You'd need to catch me first, pretty boy," Ben taunted, knowing how vain the Decepticon was about his finish. "And we both know I'd put scratches all over that paint job." Knockout's expression darkened. "Insolent flesh bag." The distraction worked. Knockout charged toward Ben, momentarily forgetting about Bumblebee, who seized the opportunity to tackle the Decepticon from behind. They crashed into a stack of containers, the metal groaning and collapsing around them. Ben used the confusion to make his way toward the freighter where Breakdown was already loading crates into a waiting transport. These tech components were destined for a DARPA facility, human technology, yes, but advanced enough that the Decepticons could repurpose it for their weapons. Ben moved silently along the shadows, the skills Jazz had taught him allowing him to slip between containers unseen. He reached the edge of the freighter's loading area just as Breakdown was turning back for another crate. "Hey ugly!" Ben called out, firing 3 quick shots at the larger Decepticon's face. They weren't powerful enough to cause serious damage, but they struck Breakdown's optic, temporarily blinding him. "Arg! The human!" Breakdown roared, swinging wildly. "I'll crush you!" Ben ducked under the massive fist, rolling between the Decepticon's legs. "Too slow. Maybe try transforming into something less clunky next time." It was a dangerous game, but one Ben had played many times. Keep the Decepticons focused on him until backup arrived. He fired another shot, this time at the stack of crates Breakdown had been loading, hitting an exposed fuel cell. The resulting explosion wasn't large, but it sent the crates tumbling, burying the tech shipment under tons of steel and debris. "No!" Breakdown bellowed. "Do you have any idea what Megatron will do to me if I return empty-handed?" "Not my problem," Ben quipped, ducking behind a container as Breakdown's hammer fist smashed into the concrete where he'd been standing. The distant roar of powerful engines announced the arrival of reinforcements. Ironhide's massive black form transformed mid-air, cannons already spinning as he landed. "Step away from the human," Ironhide growled, his weapons humming with charged energy. Breakdown looked from Ironhide to the buried shipment, clearly calculating his odds. With a snarl, he transformed into his vehicle mode and sped away, crashing through the port's perimeter fence. You let him escape, Ben said, stepping out from cover. Ironhide's optics narrowed. Securing your safety and the technology was the priority. And you, he jabbed a massive finger toward Ben's chest, directly disobeyed orders to hold position. I stopped Breakdown from taking the tech, didn't I? Ben countered, holstering his pistol. That's not the point and you know it, Ironhide grumbled, but there was a hint of pride beneath his gruff exterior. Optimus is going to have my spark for this. Jazz joined them, dragging a subdued knockout. Little man's got moves though, the lieutenant said with a grin. That distraction play was solid. Ben beamed at the praise. Jazz had been his primary teacher in stealth and tactics, and approval from the cool-headed lieutenant meant a lot. Bumblebee emerged from the wreckage of containers, giving Ben a thumbs up despite the dents and scorch marks covering his frame. You good, B? Ben asked, concerned. Bumblebee nodded, playing a quick radio clip, just a flesh wound. Let's secure the prisoner and salvage what we can of the shipment, Ironhide ordered. Ben, help Jazz with containment protocols. As they worked to secure the area, Ben couldn't help but feel a surge of satisfaction. 6 years ago, he'd been a scared kid hiding from giant robots. Now he was fighting alongside them, a respected, if junior, member of the team. Optimus would still lecture him about taking unnecessary risks, but even the Autobot leader had come to recognize Ben's value in combat situations. Something's up with the scanners, Jazz called out suddenly, checking a device attached to his arm. I'm picking up weird energy readings, nothing like I've ever seen before. Decepticons? Ben asked, instantly alert. Nah, different signature entirely. And it's... Jazz looked up, optics wide. It's coming from the water. Moving fast. Before anyone could react, something streaked from the bay toward the dock, a glowing object trailing green energy. It zipped past the Autobots, who tried unsuccessfully to track its erratic movement. What the... Ben started, then gasped as the object shot straight at him. Acting on instinct, Ben raised his arms to protect his face. The object, what looked like a metal sphere trailing green light, collided with his left wrist. Instead of the impact he expected, it seemed to unfold, wrapping around his arm like liquid metal before solidifying into what appeared to be a bulky watch with a strange hourglass symbol on its face. Ben! Ironhide shouted, weapons trained on the device. Don't move. Ratchet, we need an emergency extraction. Unknown tech has attached itself to Ben. Ben stared in shock at the device now firmly attached to his wrist. It was unlike any Cybertronian technology he'd ever seen, organic curves mixed with mechanical precision, glowing with internal energy. I can't get it off, he said, tugging at the device. It seemed fused to his skin. Don't touch it. Jazz warned, scanning it with increasingly concerned expressions. Energy readings are off the charts. This isn't Earth tech or Cybertronian. Bumblebee approached cautiously, leaning down to examine the device. He beeped questioningly, pointing at the hourglass symbol. I don't know what it means, Ben replied, still trying to process what was happening. The device had stopped glowing quite so brightly, settling into what appeared to be a dormant state. But it doesn't hurt. It feels warm. Extraction team is 3 minutes out, Ironhide reported. Optimus is with them. Guys, I think it's some kind of... Ben's words cut off as he accidentally pressed the top of the device. The face popped up, the hourglass symbol reconfiguring into a display showing a silhouette of what looked like a humanoid on fire. Whoa! Ben, don't! Jazz lunged forward, but it was too late. Curiosity getting the better of him, Ben pressed down on the face. Instantly, green energy engulfed him, momentarily blinding everyone present. Ben felt his body changing, stretching, burning, transforming in ways that should have been painful but somehow weren't. When the light faded, where Ben had stood was now a humanoid creature made entirely of living flame, its head flickering with fire, its chest bearing the same hourglass symbol that had been on the watch. Holy slag, Ironhide breathed, cannons raised but not firing. Guys? Ben's voice was deeper, crackling like a bonfire. What happened to me? He looked down at his hands, now made of molten rock and flame. Panic welled up inside him, and with it, the flames covering his body intensified, shooting several feet into the air. Ben, you need to calm down, Jazz said, approaching cautiously. Your emotional state seems to be affecting the combustion reaction. Calm down. I'm on fire. Ben shouted, the flames roaring higher. Yet you are not burning, came the deep, familiar voice of Optimus Prime as the Autobot leader strode onto the scene. Focus, Ben. Center yourself as I taught you. Ben closed his eyes, or whatever passed for eyes in this form, and took a deep breath. Surprisingly, he could still breathe, though it felt different. He employed the mental techniques Optimus had drilled into him for years, pushing aside panic in favor of analytical thought. I'm okay, he finally said, the flames receding to a more controlled level. This is weird, but I think I'm controlling it. Fascinating, Ratchet said, having arrived with Optimus. The medical officer circled Ben, scanning him repeatedly. The device appears to have rewritten your DNA on a fundamental level, transforming you into a completely different species while maintaining your consciousness. Can you change him back? Optimus asked, concern evident in his voice. I don't think I need to, Ben replied before Ratchet could answer. He raised his fiery hand to the hourglass symbol on his chest. I think this controls it. If I just... He pressed the symbol, and another flash of green light enveloped him. When it faded, Ben was human again, the watch-like device still attached to his wrist but now with a red face instead of green. It worked, he exclaimed. The device appears to have entered a recharge cycle, Ratchet observed, scanning it again. Remarkable technology. Unlike anything in our databases. Ben, Optimus said gravely, kneeling to bring his face level with his ward. Are you truly unharmed? I'm fine, Optimus. Really? Ben examined the device with newfound wonder. It was actually, kind of awesome. I could feel the fire, the heat, but it didn't hurt. It felt like it was part of me. Optimus and Ratchet exchanged concerned looks. We must return to base immediately, Optimus decided. This device requires thorough investigation. If it can transform humans into other species. The Decepticons would stop at nothing to acquire it, Ironhide finished grimly. Ben nodded, the initial excitement fading as he realized the implications. Whatever this device was, it had just made him an even bigger target in the ongoing war. Let's roll out, he said, unconsciously echoing Optimus's catchphrase. Despite the seriousness of the situation, Bumblebee let out an amused series of beeps as they headed for extraction. The Autobot base hummed with activity as Ratchet conducted test after test on both Ben and the mysterious device now firmly attached to his wrist. The main hangar had been converted into a temporary lab, with monitors displaying readings in both Cybertronian and English. It calls itself the Omnitrix, Ratchet reported, examining the data scrolling across his screens. At least, that's what the internal programming identifies it as. You can read its code? Ben asked, fascinated despite having been poked and scanned for hours. Only partially. The technology is, well, it's beyond even Cybertronian science in many ways. Ratchet sounded both impressed and frustrated. It appears to contain genetic samples from multiple alien species, 10 that I can identify so far, though there may be more locked within its database. And it allows Ben to transform into these aliens? Optimus asked, his optics never leaving Ben. Precisely. It reconfigures his DNA temporarily, granting him the abilities of whatever species he selects. Ratchet pulled up an image of the fiery being Ben had transformed into. This one appears to be a Pyronite, a species from a star system our records indicate is several galaxies from Earth. So this isn't Cybertronian tech, and it's not from my home dimension either, Ben mused, studying the device, the Omnitrix, with newfound respect. Where did it come from? Unknown, Ratchet admitted. Though the energy signature bears some similarity to the dimensional anomaly that brought you here 6 years ago. It's possible they're connected. Ben's heart skipped a beat. Could this help us find a way back to my dimension? To my family? A heavy silence fell over the room. After years of failed attempts, talk of returning Ben to his original dimension had become less frequent, though Ratchet still conducted occasional experiments. It is a possibility we should explore, Optimus said carefully. But first, we must understand this device and ensure it poses no threat to you or others. No threat? Are you kidding? Ben jumped up, excitement overriding his fatigue. This thing is amazing. Think about what I could do with it. That fire guy was super strong, I could feel it. And who knows what the other aliens can do? Which is precisely my concern, Optimus countered, his tone firm. Great power demands great responsibility, Ben. You know this. Ben sighed, recognizing Optimus's lecture mode kicking in. I know. Freedom is the right of all sentient beings, but freedom without wisdom is merely chaos. He quoted one of Optimus's favorite sayings. But come on, this could change everything. I could really help you guys fight the Decepticons now. You already help, Ironhide spoke up from where he'd been silently observing. Having fancy powers doesn't make a warrior. Strategy, discipline, courage, those make a warrior. Exactly, Optimus agreed. And while this Omnitrix may indeed prove valuable, we must proceed with caution. Ratchet will continue his analysis. In the meantime, I am instituting a moratorium on using the device until we better understand it. What? Ben protested. But, this is not open for debate, Optimus said, his tone softening but remaining firm. Ben, please understand, my primary concern is your safety. Always has been, always will be. Ben wanted to argue further but saw the genuine concern in Optimus's optics. The Autobot leader had raised him for 6 years, protected him, taught him. If Optimus was worried, there was probably good reason. Fine, he conceded reluctantly. No alien transformations until Ratchet gives the all-clear. Thank you. Optimus placed a gentle finger on Ben's shoulder, a gesture that had become their version of a reassuring hug over the years. But once it is clear, Ben added with a grin, all bets are off. I'm going to try every alien in this thing. Bumblebee gave an enthusiastic series of beeps that needed no translation. The young scout clearly thought the Omnitrix was as cool as Ben did. One thing at a time, Ratchet muttered, turning back to his monitors. Now, let me work. Ben hopped down from the examination table, stretching muscles stiff from sitting too long. Despite agreeing to Optimus's terms, his mind raced with possibilities. 10 different aliens, 10 different sets of powers at his fingertips. Whatever this Omnitrix was, wherever it had come from, it felt right on his wrist, almost like it had been made for him. I'm gonna grab something to eat, he announced, heading toward the human-sized kitchen area the Autobots had installed years ago. I'll join you, Jazz offered, falling into step beside him. Once they were out of earshot of the others, the lieutenant leaned down. So, that fire dude. Scale of 1 to 10. Ben grinned. 11. Easy. Thought so, Jazz chuckled. Just between us, I'm kinda looking forward to seeing what else that thing can do. Me too, Ben admitted. But Optimus is right about being careful. Still. He glanced down at the Omnitrix, its face now glowing green again, apparently recharged. I can't help feeling like this is what I've been waiting for. Like maybe this is why I ended up in this dimension in the first place. Jazz considered this thoughtfully. Maybe. The universe works in mysterious ways. And if anyone deserves a power upgrade, it's you, little man. You've earned it. Ben smiled at the praise. Coming from Jazz, it meant a lot. Thanks. Now I just have to convince Optimus to let me actually use it. Give him time, Jazz advised. He's protective of you, more than he'd ever admit out loud. Having raised you from a youngling, well, let's just say Optimus has developed some very un-Cybertronian attachments. You mean he loves me, Ben translated with a smirk. Jazz laughed. Not a word we Cybertronians throw around much, but yeah. Something like that. Ben nodded, understanding. Optimus wasn't just his guardian, after 6 years, they were family. Different species, different origins, but bound by something deeper than either. And family worried about each other. I'll be patient, Ben decided. For now. Later that night, alone in his quarters, Ben examined the Omnitrix more closely. The face glowed softly in the darkness, casting green shadows across his room. He turned the dial experimentally, watching as different silhouettes appeared, the fiery one he'd already transformed into, plus others, a four-armed humanoid, something that looked like a giant insect, a creature made of diamond, and more. 10 heroes in one, he whispered to himself. Not bad, Tennyson. Not bad at all. Ben hadn't mentioned it to the others, but when he transformed into that fire creature, he'd felt something else too, a connection, faint but unmistakable, to somewhere beyond this dimension. Like the Omnitrix was somehow tethered to his original universe. To home. He touched the device gently, wondering if Grandpa Max and Gwen were still out there somewhere, still looking for him. Would they even recognize him now? 6 years had changed him from a scrawny 10-year-old into a teenager raised by giant alien robots. He'd learned combat tactics instead of video games, alien technology instead of math homework. I'll find you guys, he promised quietly. Somehow. With that thought, he drifted off to sleep, the Omnitrix glowing steadily on his wrist like a beacon calling across dimensions. Megatron slammed his fist into the control panel, sending sparks flying across the bridge of the Nemesis. The Decepticon warship hovered cloaked above Earth's atmosphere, hidden from both Autobot and human detection. Incompetent fools, he raged at Knockout and Breakdown, who stood before him, optics downcast. A simple retrieval mission, and you return not only empty-handed but with information that Optimus Prime's pet human has acquired a weapon of unknown power. Lord Megatron, Knockout ventured cautiously, the device appeared out of nowhere. None of our intelligence indicated, silence. Megatron cut him off. I am surrounded by failures and excuses. He turned to the silent figure standing in the shadows. Soundwave, show me the footage again. The communications officer stepped forward, his faceless visage displaying video captured during the battle. The footage zoomed in on Ben Tennyson as the strange device attached itself to his wrist, then the dramatic transformation into a being of living flame. Fascinating, came a raspy voice from the doorway. Starscream, Megatron's second-in-command, entered with his characteristically sycophantic posture. The human's biosignature completely changed. He was no longer human at all. A shapeshifter, Megatron mused. Not unlike our own transformation abilities, but on a biological level. His red optics narrowed. Soundwave, analyze all available data on this device. I want to know what it is, where it came from, and most importantly, how to remove it from the human and harness its power for the Decepticon cause. Soundwave nodded silently, his screens already cycling through analysis protocols. Lord Megatron, Starscream said with false deference, perhaps this development could work to our advantage. The boy has lived among the Autobots for years. He trusts them implicitly. Your point, Starscream. Megatron growled impatiently. What if, instead of taking the device by force, we convinced the boy to join us willingly? Starscream's lips curled into a sinister smile. After all, he is at a rebellious human age. And Optimus's overbearing protectiveness must surely chafe. Megatron considered this, a slow, cruel smile spreading across his face. An interesting suggestion, Starscream. Perhaps the human could indeed be turned. But he has been thoroughly indoctrinated in Autobot propaganda. Every child rebels against their parent eventually, Starscream pressed. Even one raised by Optimus Prime. Perhaps. Megatron turned back to the footage, freezing on the image of Ben transformed into the fire creature. But I prefer more direct methods. Prepare a capture team. I want the boy brought to me, alive and with the device intact. As you command, Lord Megatron, Knockout responded, eager to redeem himself. And Knockout, Megatron added, his voice dropping dangerously, failure will not be tolerated a second time. The red Decepticon bowed hastily. Understood, my lord. As his subordinates left to carry out his orders, Megatron remained staring at the frozen image. After 6 years of dismissing the human as Optimus Prime's weakness, a liability the Autobot leader had foolishly taken on, Benjamin Tennyson had suddenly become the most valuable prize on Earth. Soon, boy, Megatron murmured. Soon you and your new power will serve the Decepticons. And Optimus Prime will learn the cost of attachment. Across the galaxy, undetected by either Autobot or Decepticon sensors, another ship adjusted its course toward Earth. Inside, a squid-faced alien in armored exoskeleton studied readings on a control panel, his red eyes narrowing as they locked onto the signature of the Omnitrix. At last, Vilgax rasped. After all this time, the Omnitrix has resurfaced. In another dimension, but still within my grasp. He turned to the robotic drones piloting his vessel. Maximum speed to the source of the signal. Nothing will prevent me from claiming what is rightfully mine. The ship accelerated, tearing through space toward the small blue planet where Ben Tennyson, raised by Optimus Prime and newly empowered by the Omnitrix, slept unaware of the forces now converging upon him. Chapter 2, Two Worlds Collide, 4 Arms, Coming Through. Ben shouted as he charged down the abandoned subway tunnel, his massive red four-armed body easily tossing aside debris. Each of his 4 muscular arms ended in a hand with 2 opposable thumbs, perfect for the serious smashing he was about to deliver. 6 months after discovering the Omnitrix, Ben had gotten pretty good at using his alien forms. This Tetraman form, 4 arms, as he dubbed it, was one of his favorites. Super strength, near invulnerability, and, well, 4 arms. What 16-year-old wouldn't love that? Soundwave, 12 o'clock. Ironhide's voice crackled through the comm unit built into the Omnitrix symbol on Ben's shoulder. Ben spotted the silent Decepticon communications officer ahead, extracting something from a hidden vault in the tunnel wall. Typical. The Decepticons had been going after obscure tech all over the planet lately. I got him. Ben launched himself forward in a powerful leap that sent concrete cracking beneath his feet. Hey, Slender Man. That doesn't belong to you. Soundwave turned, his featureless face revealing nothing as he released his tentacle-like cables toward Ben. 4 arms caught one of the cables in his upper right hand and yanked hard, pulling Soundwave off balance. Too slow. Ben grinned, using his lower arms to grip the subway rails while his free upper arm delivered a devastating punch to Soundwave's midsection. The Decepticon staggered back but quickly recovered, deploying Laserbeak from his chest cavity. The bird-like Minicon swooped toward Ben, firing rapidly. Not cool, man. 4 arms crossed his arms defensively as laser fire peppered his tough red skin. It stung but couldn't penetrate his Tetraman hide. I could use some backup here. Bumblebee crashed through from a connecting tunnel, his blasters already firing at Laserbeak. The yellow Autobot had become Ben's most frequent mission partner. They worked well together, developing a shorthand that made them an effective team despite Bumblebee's vocal limitations. 4 arms used the distraction to close the distance with Soundwave again. The Decepticon was tough, one of Megatron's most loyal and dangerous lieutenants, but even he had trouble dealing with 1,200 pounds of angry Tetraman. This is for Detroit. Ben growled, remembering how Soundwave had nearly killed Ratchet during a battle 3 months ago. He slammed all 4 fists into the Decepticon in rapid succession, driving him back against the tunnel wall. Soundwave's visor flickered as systems took damage. He ejected something from his chest compartment, a small storage device, before deploying a sonic attack that sent 4 arms reeling, his sensitive ears overwhelmed by the frequency. Arg! Ben dropped to his knees, all 4 hands covering his ears. Through watering eyes, he saw Soundwave transform into his aerial drone form and zoom down the tunnel, Laserbeak following close behind. Ben! Bumblebee raced to his side, helping him up with concerned beeps and whirs. The Omnitrix symbol on Ben's shoulder began blinking red. Great timing as always, Ben muttered as a flash of red light enveloped him, returning him to human form. The transformation faded, leaving 16-year-old Ben Tennyson kneeling in the dirt. 6 years in this dimension had changed him from the scrawny kid who'd arrived by accident. Regular training with the Autobots had given him an athletic build, and his face had hardened into more mature lines. His brown hair was still perpetually messy, though now by choice rather than neglect. He wore a black t-shirt with green trim, an echo of the Omnitrix's colors, and cargo pants with multiple pockets filled with gear Ratchet insisted he carry. "You okay?" he asked Bumblebee, who nodded while helping Ben to his feet. Ironhide joined them, his massive cannon still glowing hot. "Soundwave got away with the tech," the weapons specialist growled. "Not all of it." Ben picked up the small storage device Soundwave had ejected. "He dropped this during our fight. Or maybe he tossed it on purpose. Could be a trap," Ironhide warned, scanning the object cautiously. "Let Ratchet examine it back at base," Ben suggested, pocketing the device. "Whatever the cons want with all this random tech, it can't be good." Bumblebee transformed into his Camaro form, doors swinging open invitingly. Ben climbed in, still feeling the echo of 4 arms strength in his now ordinary human muscles. The contrast never got less weird, going from superpowered alien to regular human in a flash of light. "Optimus is gonna be pissed I let Soundwave escape," Ben sighed as they drove through the tunnel toward daylight. Bumblebee played a clip through his radio, "Win some, lose some, kid." "Yeah, but that's the 3rd piece of tech the Decepticons have nabbed this month. They're building something big." Ben stared out the window as they emerged onto the streets of Philadelphia. "And somehow I think it involves me." The Autobot base was buzzing with activity when they returned. Over the years, the team had expanded, with more Autobots answering Optimus Prime's call to Earth. What had once been an abandoned missile silo was now a sprawling complex of tunnels and chambers, part military base, part home. Ben made his way directly to the command center where Optimus stood studying a holographic map with Ultra Magnus. The 2 massive Autobots were deep in discussion, but Optimus immediately noticed Ben's arrival. "Benjamin," Optimus acknowledged, his deep voice carrying across the room. "Report." 6 years of living with the Autobot leader had taught Ben to recognize the subtle inflections in that otherwise steady voice. Right now, Optimus was concerned but not angry. "Soundwave got the primary tech package," Ben admitted, approaching the central platform that brought him closer to eye level with the Autobots. "But he left this behind." He held up the storage device. "Might be a trap, might be a clue." "Or both," Ratchet said, taking the device from Ben with surprising delicacy for such massive fingers. The medical officer had modified his digits over the years to better interact with human-sized objects, primarily for Ben's benefit. "You engaged Soundwave directly?" Optimus asked, his optics narrowing slightly. "As 4 arms, yeah," Ben nodded. "Had him on the ropes until he pulled that sonic attack. The Omnitrix timed out right after." "You continue to take unnecessary risks," Ultra Magnus stated flatly. Despite years of working together, the by-the-book commander still disapproved of Ben's more impulsive tactics. "With respect, sir," Ben countered, standing straighter, "4 arms can take hits that would flatten a human. I made a tactical decision based on the capabilities of my active transformation." Optimus's mouth plates shifted in what Ben recognized as his version of a suppressed smile. The Autobot leader appreciated when Ben used the formal military language he'd been taught, especially when dealing with Ultra Magnus. Nevertheless, Optimus said, Soundwave is not to be underestimated. Remember that the Omnitrix has limitations, particularly its transformation duration. I know, Ben sighed. 6 months of using the device had taught him its quirks all too well. 10-minute time limit, then a recharge period. Trust me, the timing could be better. The fact remains, Optimus continued, that Megatron's forces are collecting specific technologies with increasing urgency. This pattern suggests a larger objective. I've been analyzing the types of tech they're after. Ratchet called out from his workstation where he was already examining the storage device. Energy modulators, quantum entanglement devices, dimensional resonance amplifiers. Ben's head snapped up. Dimensional tech. Like, the kind that might be related to how I got here. A heavy silence fell over the command center. Despite 6 years of trying, they'd never found a reliable way to open a portal back to Ben's original dimension. The attempts had become less frequent over time, as Ben integrated more fully into life with the Autobots. It's possible, Ratchet admitted carefully. Though Megatron's interest is unlikely to be altruistic. No slag, Ironhide grunted, joining the conversation. More likely he's looking to open portals to other dimensions to find resources or allies. Or weapons, Ultra Magnus added grimly. Ben's mind raced. If Megatron was working on dimensional technology, could it somehow lead to a way home? Not that he was eager to abandon his Autobot family, but the thought of seeing Grandpa Max and Gwen again after all these years. Ben, Optimus said gently, recognizing the look on his ward's face. Whatever Megatron's plans, we will investigate thoroughly. If there is indeed a connection to your home dimension, we will pursue it. Thanks, Optimus, Ben replied, grateful as always for the Autobot leader's perceptiveness. In the meantime, Optimus continued, turning to address the entire team, we must increase our vigilance. RC, coordinate with Earth's military to enhance surveillance of potential target sites. Ironhide, weapons systems at full readiness. Ultra Magnus, prepare defensive protocols for the base. As the Autobots moved to carry out their orders, Ben checked the Omnitrix. Still in recharge mode, the face glowing red. Another few minutes before he could transform again. Ben, Optimus said, kneeling to bring himself closer to human height. A moment, please. Ben followed Optimus to a quieter corner of the command center, wondering if he was in for one of the Autobot leader's famous lectures about responsibility and caution. Is something wrong? Ben asked. Wrong? No. Optimus's voice softened. I merely wish to commend you on your growth these past 6 months. You have embraced the power of the Omnitrix with remarkable adaptability. Ben blinked in surprise. Thanks. That's not what I was expecting you to say. Optimus's optics brightened with amusement. You anticipated a lecture on recklessness, perhaps. Maybe, Ben admitted with a small grin. You gotta admit, you do give a lot of those. Only because I care for your well-being, Optimus replied, then added more seriously, but you are no longer the child I once protected, Benjamin. You have become a warrior in your own right, one I am proud to fight alongside. The unexpected praise warmed Ben more than he cared to admit. Optimus wasn't stingy with encouragement, but this felt different, an acknowledgement of Ben's transition from ward to partner. That means a lot coming from you, Ben said sincerely. However, Optimus continued, and Ben suppressed a smile at the inevitable qualifier, your new abilities make you a target. Megatron has always seen you as my weakness. Now he sees you as a potential asset to be acquired. Let him try, Ben said, patting the Omnitrix. I've got a few surprises for old Buckethead if he comes after me. Your confidence is admirable, but caution remains wise. Optimus stood to his full height again. The Decepticons are not the only threat we may face. If Megatron is indeed experimenting with dimensional technology, there is no telling what forces he might inadvertently unleash. Ben nodded, sobering at the thought. You're right. I'll be careful, I promise. Good. Now, I believe Ratchet requires your assistance with the recovered device. As Ben headed toward Ratchet's workstation, the Omnitrix suddenly began to beep wildly, not the normal recharge completion signal, but a higher-pitched alarm he'd never heard before. What the? Ben stared at the device as its face flashed between red and green rapidly. Ben. Ratchet called, noticing the disturbance. What's happening with the Omnitrix? I don't know. It's never done this before. The device grew warm on his wrist, almost hot, and the hourglass symbol began to spin. Ben felt a strange tingling sensation running up his arm, not painful, but deeply unsettling. Ratchet. Optimus commanded, striding quickly back to Ben's side. The medical officer was already scanning, his expression growing increasingly concerned. The Omnitrix is reacting to some kind of external signal, a carrier wave unlike anything I've seen before. It's not Cybertronian in origin. Can you block it? Ben asked, gritting his teeth as the tingling intensified. I'm trying, but, before Ratchet could finish, the Omnitrix emitted a blinding flash of green light. For a moment, Ben thought he was transforming involuntarily, but instead, a holographic display projected from the device, a face Ben didn't recognize, gray-skinned with tentacle-like appendages where a mouth should be. Attention, bearer of the Omnitrix, the face spoke in a deep, rasping voice. I am Vilgax, rightful owner of the device you have stolen. Know that I have crossed dimensions to reclaim what is mine, and nothing in your primitive world will stop me. Surrender the Omnitrix willingly, and your death will be quick. Resist, and you will beg for mercy long before the end. The hologram flickered out, leaving the command center in stunned silence. Well, Ben finally said, that's new. Vilgax, Ratchet muttered, already searching through databases. No match in any Earth or Cybertronian records. He said he crossed dimensions, Ben pointed out. He must be from my original universe. Maybe he's the one who created the Omnitrix. Or merely claims ownership, Optimus noted. Regardless, this Vilgax represents a new threat, one potentially connected to Megatron's recent activities. Great, Ben sighed. Because one megalomaniac alien warlord wasn't enough to deal with. The timing suggests Megatron's dimensional experiments may have inadvertently created a pathway for this Vilgax, Ultra Magnus theorized. Or Vilgax created the pathway himself to track the Omnitrix, Ratchet countered. Either way, we should prepare for, the base's alarm system suddenly blared to life, red lights flashing throughout the command center. Multiple bogies approaching. RC called from the monitoring station. Configuration unknown, not Decepticon signatures. On screen, Optimus ordered. The main display lit up with images from the base's external cameras. Dozens of drone-like machines were descending from the sky, their design unlike anything Ben had seen before, not sleek like Cybertronian tech, but bulky and menacing, with crab-like limbs and glowing red sensors. Those definitely don't belong to Megatron, Ben said, watching as the drones began attacking the base's outer defenses. Autobots, battle stations. Optimus commanded. Defend the base at all costs. As the Autobots rushed to their positions, Ben checked the Omnitrix, finally green and ready. Time for me to help clear out the trash, he said, cycling through the alien selection display. Ben, Optimus called over his shoulder as he headed for the exit, be vigilant. If this Vilgax seeks the Omnitrix specifically, these drones may prioritize your capture. Got it. I'll stick close to the team. Ben settled on his choice and slammed down on the Omnitrix face. Green light enveloped him, and his body morphed into a sleek, velociraptor-like form with wheels instead of feet and a helmet-like head with a visor. XLR-8, he shouted in a raspy, accelerated voice. Let's see those drones keep up with this. In a blur of motion, XLR-8 raced after the Autobots, moving so quickly he was barely visible to the naked eye. 6 months of practice had made him proficient with most of his transformations, and XLR-8 was perfect for battlefield mobility, getting civilians to safety, flanking enemies, or delivering rapid-fire attacks. Outside, chaos reigned. The drones were surprisingly effective against the base's automated defenses, using coordinated tactics that suggested a hive mind or central controller. Several had already breached the outer perimeter and were engaging the Autobots directly. XLR-8 zoomed across the battlefield, creating a blue streak as he moved. He spotted Bumblebee pinned down by 3 drones and changed course, accelerating to nearly 300 miles per hour. "Incoming," he shouted, seconds before colliding with the first drone. The impact at such speed sent the machine flying, its chassis crumpling from the kinetic force. XLR-8 spun in a tight circle, creating a tornado-like vortex that lifted the second drone off the ground, then slammed it into the third with precisely calculated momentum. Bumblebee gave him a thumbs up before rejoining the fight, blasters firing at a new wave of incoming drones. "These things are tough," XLR-8 commented, dodging energy blasts with his incredible speed. Unlike Decepticons, who typically retreated when damaged, these drones fought until completely disabled, and there were a lot of them. "Ben. RC called over the comms. We've got a breach in the east quadrant. Something big got through while the drones distracted us." XLR-8 changed direction instantly, racing toward the eastern entrance of the base. As he rounded the corner, he skidded to a halt, visor widening at what awaited him. A massive armored figure stood amid the wreckage of the blast doors. Nearly 12 feet tall, the being wore red and black armor that seemed grafted to his body. His face, if it could be called that, matched the hologram that had appeared from the Omnitrix, tentacle-like appendages hanging where a mouth should be, red eyes glowing with malice. "Vilgax, I presume?" XLR-8 asked, shifting his weight to his back foot, ready to move in any direction. The Kinoceleran form, Vilgax noted, his voice even more menacing in person. "Fast, but fragile. A poor choice for confronting me." Before XLR-8 could reply, Vilgax moved with shocking speed for his size, closing the distance between them in a heartbeat. A massive armored fist slammed into the ground where Ben had been standing a split second earlier. "Whoa. Not bad for a walking calamari." XLR-8 taunted, circling Vilgax at super speed. "But you're still too slow." He darted in, landing dozens of rapid strikes against Vilgax's armor before retreating. To his dismay, the attack seemed to barely register. "Your predecessor wielded the Omnitrix with greater skill," Vilgax said dismissively. "You are nothing but a child playing with power you cannot comprehend." "Predecessor?" XLR-8 faltered momentarily, giving Vilgax the opening he needed. The alien warlord deployed what looked like a grappling weapon, firing a bola that expanded in midair. Despite his speed, XLR-8 couldn't entirely evade it, the weighted cords wrapped around one leg, sending him tumbling across the floor. 6 months you've had the Omnitrix, Vilgax said, advancing methodically. "In my dimension, it took years to track it after it was stolen from me. And now I find it on the wrist of an untrained human child in an alternate reality." He laughed coldly. The universe has a strange sense of humor. XLR-8 struggled against the bola, which seemed to be dampening his speed somehow. "If it was stolen from you, maybe you should have had better security," he quipped, trying to buy time. "A mistake I won't repeat." Vilgax raised a device that looked like a high-tech gauntlet. "This will remove the Omnitrix and transfer its control to me, along with the genetic sample of whatever form you're currently using. It may be uncomfortable for you." "I'm not really into jewelry removal right now," XLR-8 replied, still fighting the restraint. "My schedule's packed. Your attempts at humor do not amuse me." Vilgax aimed the device at XLR-8's chest, where the Omnitrix symbol glowed. "This will only take a moment." A massive blue blast suddenly struck Vilgax from behind, sending him staggering forward. Optimus Prime stood in the doorway, his ion blaster smoking. "Step away from him," Optimus commanded, his voice colder than Ben had ever heard it. Vilgax turned slowly, sizing up the new arrival. Another mechanical life form? This dimension is full of surprises. I am Optimus Prime, leader of the Autobots and guardian of Benjamin Tennyson. You will leave this place immediately or face the consequences. XLR-8 used the distraction to vibrate his captured limb at super speed, finally breaking free of the bola. He zipped to Optimus's side, the familiar presence of his mentor reassuring after Vilgax's overwhelming strength. Your guardian cannot save you, Vilgax said dismissively. The Omnitrix is my creation, designed to preserve the genetic codes of the galaxy's most powerful species. It was never meant for a human. Well, it picked me, XLR-8 shot back, and we're kind of attached to each other now. Literally. Vilgax's eyes narrowed. Then I will take it, and the arm it's attached to. He lunged forward with surprising agility, engaging Optimus directly. The Autobot leader met the charge head-on, his massive fist connecting with Vilgax's jaw. The alien warlord staggered but didn't fall, retaliating with a series of powerful blows that actually dented Optimus's armor. XLR-8 darted in, using his speed to land hit-and-run attacks, but Vilgax seemed to anticipate his movements better now, swatting him away with a backhand that sent him crashing into a wall. Ben! Optimus called out in concern. I'm okay, XLR-8 groaned, picking himself up. But this guy hits like a truck. The Omnitrix symbol on his chest began blinking red, transformation time running out. Oh, come on, not now. In a flash of red light, Ben returned to human form, the timing worse than ever. Vilgax's eyes gleamed with triumph. The vulnerabilities of the prototype, he gloated, shoving Optimus back with a powerful kick. Now you're just a weak human child. Maybe, Ben admitted, backing away as he checked the Omnitrix, still in recharge mode. But I've got something you don't. And what might that be? Vilgax asked, advancing menacingly. Ben grinned. Backup. A barrage of energy blasts suddenly poured into the room from behind Ben as Ironhide, RC, and Bumblebee arrived, weapons firing. Vilgax was forced to take cover, snarling in frustration. This isn't over, he growled. The Omnitrix will be mine. He pressed a control on his gauntlet, and his body began to shimmer with energy. Enjoy your temporary victory. I have other matters to attend to, alliances to form in this new dimension. Wait. Ben called out. What did you mean by predecessor? Who had the Omnitrix before me? Vilgax paused, studying Ben with new interest. You truly don't know? How fascinating. His form grew increasingly transparent. Perhaps I'll tell you, after I've ripped the Omnitrix from your corpse. With that, he vanished completely, teleporting away before the Autobots could stop him. Slag, Ironhide cursed. Teleportation tech. That complicates things. Ben stared at the spot where Vilgax had disappeared, his mind racing with questions. A predecessor? Someone else had used the Omnitrix before him? And what had Vilgax meant about it being his creation? Ben, are you injured? Optimus asked, kneeling beside him. I'm fine, Ben assured him, though his ribs ached where Vilgax had struck him. But that guy, he's on a whole different level. XLR-8 barely fazed him. His technology and physiology are unlike anything in our records, RC reported, scanning the area where Vilgax had stood. And he mentioned forming alliances, Ben added grimly. $10 says he's heading straight for Megatron. An alliance between Vilgax and Megatron would indeed be troubling, Optimus agreed. We must prepare for this possibility. Outside, the drone attack was subsiding as the remaining machines retreated or self-destructed. The Autobots had won this round, but at a cost. The base's defenses were severely damaged, and several team members had sustained injuries. Ben looked down at the Omnitrix, its face still glowing red as it recharged. For the first time since discovering it, he felt a chill of doubt. What if he wasn't meant to have this device? What if Vilgax was telling the truth about being its creator? You're troubled, Optimus observed as they walked back to the command center. Just thinking, Ben replied. Vilgax said the Omnitrix was his creation, designed to preserve genetic codes. That matches what Ratchet discovered, but... He trailed off, uncertain how to express his concerns. You question whether you should possess such power, Optimus finished for him. Ben nodded. Maybe it wasn't supposed to find me. Maybe there was someone else, this predecessor, Vilgax mentioned. Perhaps, Optimus acknowledged. But I have observed something in my long life, Benjamin. True power does not always go where it is intended, but rather where it is needed. Pretty sure I'm not what the universe needed, Ben said with a self-deprecating smile. I disagree, Optimus replied simply. You have wielded the Omnitrix with courage and compassion, qualities that suggest it found its proper bearer, regardless of original intent. Ben looked up at his guardian, drawing strength from Optimus's unwavering confidence. Thanks. I just hope I can live up to that when Vilgax comes back. Because he will. And when he does, Optimus assured him, you will not face him alone. Deep within the Decepticon warship Nemesis, Megatron stood before a massive viewscreen displaying Earth's atmospheric readings. Something had penetrated the planet's defensive grid an hour earlier, something neither human nor Cybertronian in origin. Lord Megatron, Soundwave communicated silently through their secure channel, displaying data across his visor. Unknown craft detected in Earth orbit. Technology signature does not match known parameters. Interesting, Megatron mused. Perhaps our dimensional experiments have yielded unexpected results. Deploy reconnaissance drones to. He was interrupted by a commotion outside the bridge. The sounds of combat echoed through the corridors, drawing closer. Megatron turned, fusion cannon powering up as the doors to the bridge were forcibly torn open. Vilgax strode in, dragging the offline bodies of 2 Viacon guards. Behind him, several of his drones moved into defensive positions. You must be Megatron, Vilgax said, dropping the Viacons unceremoniously. Your security is inadequate. Megatron's optics narrowed dangerously. You demonstrate either tremendous courage or foolishness by invading my vessel. Neither, Vilgax replied coolly. Merely efficiency. I could waste time with diplomatic channels, but I prefer direct communication. Despite his readiness to obliterate the intruder, Megatron found himself intrigued. Few beings would dare challenge him so boldly on his own ship. State your purpose, then, before I reduce you to atoms. I am Vilgax, conqueror of worlds and rightful owner of a device called the Omnitrix, currently in the possession of a human child under the protection of your enemies, the Autobots. Megatron lowered his cannon slightly. You speak of Benjamin Tennyson. You know of him. Vilgax's eyes glinted with interest. The boy has been a thorn in my side for years, Megatron admitted. Recently acquiring powers that make him, marginally more troublesome. Those powers belong to me, Vilgax stated flatly. The Omnitrix is my creation, stolen from my dimension. I have crossed realities to reclaim it. Megatron studied the alien warlord thoughtfully. And you believe an alliance would benefit us both. Your forces know this world and the Autobots' defenses. My technology exceeds anything in this dimension. Together, we can destroy Optimus Prime and his followers while I reclaim the Omnitrix. An appealing proposition, Megatron acknowledged. However, I see a flaw in your plan. If the Omnitrix is as powerful as you claim, why would I help you claim it only to watch you depart to another dimension? Vilgax smiled coldly. Because I offer more than merely eliminating your enemies. I offer access to dimensional gateway technology, the ability to travel between realities, accessing resources and conquests beyond your imagination. Now Megatron was genuinely interested. The Decepticons' recent technological acquisitions had been aimed precisely at developing such capability, but progress had been slow. You have my attention, Megatron said. But know this, I do not share power, and I do not serve. Any alliance between us will be as equals. Agreed, Vilgax nodded. I care only for the Omnitrix and the destruction of those who keep it from me. This world and its resources are yours to claim afterward. Then perhaps we can reach an accommodation. Megatron extended a clawed hand. Welcome aboard the Nemesis, Vilgax. Let us discuss how to separate young Benjamin from his Autobot protectors, and the Omnitrix from his wrist. As they shook hands, neither warlord trusted the other in the slightest. But for now, their goals aligned perfectly, the destruction of Optimus Prime and the acquisition of the Omnitrix. The next few days at the Autobot base were tense. Repairs continued around the clock as Ratchet worked to enhance their defensive systems against Vilgax's technology. Ben spent most of his time training with different alien forms, pushing their limits in preparation for the inevitable rematch. The energy readings from Vilgax's teleportation signature are similar to the dimensional anomaly that brought you here, Ratchet explained during one of their analysis sessions. It suggests he's using controlled tiers in the dimensional fabric to travel between realities. Could we use the same tech to send me home? Ben asked, the question slipping out before he could consider it. Ratchet glanced at him, expression softening. Possibly. If we could capture and reverse engineer his equipment. He paused. Is that still what you want? To return to your original dimension? Ben stared at the Omnitrix, turning the question over in his mind. I don't know anymore, Ratchet. I've been here more than a third of my life. The Autobots are my family now. But you still wonder about your human family, Ratchet finished gently. That's understandable, Ben. I just wish I knew if they were okay, Ben admitted. If they're still looking for me, or if they've moved on. 6 years is a long time. Before Ratchet could respond, the base's alert system activated, not the full battle alarm, but a proximity warning. Unidentified energy signature detected at the perimeter, RC reported from the monitor station. Small, possibly human-sized, but reading as non-terrestrial. Vilgax? Ben asked, instantly alert. Different signature, RC shook her head. And too small to be him or one of his drones. I'll check it out, Ben decided, activating the Omnitrix. He cycled through his options before settling on one of his newer forms. Let's see what Ghost Freak can find out. He slammed down on the Omnitrix face, and green light enveloped him. When it faded, a floating, spectral form hovered where Ben had stood, a ghost-like alien with a single eye, clawed hands, and a striped tail. The Omnitrix symbol gleamed from the center of his chest. Be careful, Ben, Ratchet warned. We don't know what we're dealing with. Relax, Ghost Freak's eerie, echoing voice replied. They can't see what they can't see. With that, he turned invisible and phased through the nearest wall, heading toward the perimeter where the energy signature had been detected. Ghost Freak's form allowed Ben to fly silently through the air, completely invisible to both organic and electronic detection. It was one of his creepier transformations. Sometimes it felt like this form had a mind of its own, but the stealth capabilities were unmatched. He reached the perimeter and scanned the area, his single eye penetrating the darkness with ease. At first, he saw nothing unusual, just the desert landscape surrounding the base, bathed in moonlight. Then movement caught his attention, a small figure picking their way carefully across the rocky terrain, heading directly for the base's hidden entrance. The figure wore what looked like a high-tech suit of armor, complete with a helmet that obscured their features. Gotcha, Ghost Freak whispered, swooping down to observe more closely while remaining invisible. The figure paused, head tilting as though listening. To Ghost Freak's shock, they looked directly at his invisible form and spoke. I know you're there. The suit can detect spectral entities. The voice was young, female, and somehow, familiar. Ghost Freak maintained his invisibility but responded. That's a neat trick. Care to explain why you're sneaking around an Autobot base in the middle of the night? The figure hesitated, then reached up and removed her helmet. Red hair spilled out, framing a face that, despite 6 years of changes, Ben recognized instantly. Gwen. Ghost Freak gasped, involuntarily becoming visible in his shock. Gwen Tennyson, now a teenager like Ben, stared at the ghostly alien with a mixture of determination and uncertainty. I'm looking for my cousin, Ben Tennyson. And I'm not leaving until I find him. Gwen, it's me. Ghost Freak exclaimed, floating closer. It's Ben. She backed away, eyes narrowing suspiciously. Nice try, whatever you are. Ben doesn't look like some Halloween reject. No, you don't understand. Ghost Freak touched the Omnitrix symbol on his chest, which was beginning to blink red anyway. In a flash of light, he reverted to human form, revealing 16-year-old Ben Tennyson. Gwen froze, her eyes widening in disbelief. Ben. Is it really you? In the flesh, Ben confirmed, a grin spreading across his face despite the surreal situation. Though I was just in the ectoplasm a second ago. Ben. Gwen launched herself at him, wrapping him in a fierce hug that nearly knocked him over. We thought you were dead. 6 years, you doofus. 6 years. Ben returned the hug awkwardly, emotions he'd kept bottled up for years suddenly threatening to overwhelm him. I know. It's a long story involving dimensional portals, alien robots, and this watch thing that lets me turn into different aliens. Gwen pulled back, wiping tears from her eyes even as she punched him in the arm. Of course it is. Because nothing is ever normal with you. She looked at the Omnitrix with newfound interest. So that's what Grandpa's been tracking. Grandpa Max. He's alive. He's here too. Ben asked eagerly. Not here, Gwen clarified. But yes, he's alive and he's been searching for you since you disappeared. We both have. How did you find me? How did you even get to this dimension? Gwen's expression grew more serious. That's part of why I'm here, Ben. Something's wrong with the dimensional barriers. Grandpa's plumber tech detected massive disturbances, and then this weird alien guy named Azimuth showed up with a device to track the Omnitrix signature across dimensions. Azimuth? Who's that? And what's a plumber? Before Gwen could answer, a deep voice interrupted from behind Ben. Benjamin, step away from the intruder. Ben turned to see Optimus Prime standing a short distance away, his blaster not raised but definitely ready. Behind him, Ironhide and Bumblebee had taken up defensive positions. It's okay, Optimus. Ben said quickly, stepping protectively in front of Gwen. This is my cousin, Gwen Tennyson. From my original dimension. She's family. Optimus's optics widened slightly in surprise before he lowered his stance to a less threatening posture. Your cousin. The one you have spoken of often. The very same, Ben confirmed, turning to Gwen with a grin. Gwen, meet Optimus Prime, leader of the Autobots and, well, he's kinda been my guardian for the past 6 years. Gwen stared up at the massive Autobot with undisguised amazement. You've been taking care of my cousin. I don't know whether to thank you or apologize. A rare chuckle escaped Optimus. Both reactions would be understandable, Miss Tennyson. Benjamin has been, quite the experience. Tell me about it. Gwen rolled her eyes, falling back into their old dynamic with surprising ease. Try growing up with him. Hey! Ben protested. I'm standing right here. Ironhide approached cautiously, scanners assessing Gwen. She's definitely human, but there are energy signatures I can't identify. Different from Ben's. That would be my magic, Gwen explained matter-of-factly. Magic? Ben repeated incredulously. Since when do you have magic? Since about a year after you disappeared, Gwen shrugged. A lot has changed, Ben. I'm not the same 10-year-old you remember. Clearly, Ben murmured, taking in his cousin's confident stance and the advanced tech she wore. But magic? Seriously? says the boy who just turned into a ghost, Gwen shot back with a smirk. Perhaps this conversation would be better continued inside, Optimus suggested. If there are breaches in the dimensional barriers as you suggest, we may all be in danger. As they walked back toward the base, Ben couldn't stop glancing at Gwen, afraid she might disappear if he looked away too long. After 6 years of believing he might never see his family again, having Gwen suddenly appear felt like a dream. "So Grandpa Max is a plumber?" he asked, trying to make sense of what she'd mentioned earlier. "Not the kind that fixes toilets," Gwen clarified. "The plumbers are an intergalactic law enforcement organization. Grandpa's been a member for decades, he just never told us when we were kids." "Our grandfather is a space cop," Ben summarized, shaking his head in disbelief. "And you're a magician. Anything else I should know? Is our family secretly a bunch of superheroes or something?" "Not far off," Gwen said with a small smile. "It turns out our grandmother was an energy being called an anodite. That's where my powers come from, I inherited her spark." Ben's head was spinning. "This is a lot to take in." "Imagine how I feel," Gwen countered. "One minute I'm tracking an interdimensional signal with Grandpa, the next I'm face to face with my cousin who's been missing for 6 years and apparently lives with giant robots now." "Autonomous robotic organisms," Ben corrected automatically, mimicking Optimus's formal tone before breaking into a grin. "But yeah, giant robots works too." As they entered the base, the other Autobots gathered curiously to meet the newcomer. Gwen handled the introductions with surprising poise, though Ben noticed her eyes widening each time a new Autobot introduced themselves. "Now, Miss Tennyson," Ratchet said once they'd reached the command center, "you mentioned someone called Azimuth and a device to track the Omnitrix. This information could be crucial." Gwen nodded, her expression growing more serious. "Azimuth showed up about a month ago, right after the dimensional disturbances started. He said he was the creator of something called the Omnitrix, and that it had been stolen from him, then lost in a dimensional accident." "Wait," Ben interrupted, "Azimuth created the Omnitrix? Not Vilgax?" "Vilgax?" Gwen's face darkened. "That's who Azimuth warned us about. He said Vilgax had been trying to steal the Omnitrix for years, and that he'd finally found a way to track it across dimensions." "Well, he wasn't wrong," Ben grimaced. "Vilgax showed up here a few days ago, claimed the Omnitrix was his creation, and tried to tear my arm off to get it." "Typical," Gwen sighed. "According to Azimuth, Vilgax is a galactic warlord who wants the Omnitrix to create an army of super soldiers. The device was never meant for combat. Azimuth designed it as a way to promote peace and understanding between species by literally letting them walk in each other's shoes, or tentacles, or whatever." "That tracks with what we've discovered about its function," Ratchet agreed. "The Omnitrix contains DNA samples from various sentient species and allows the wearer to temporarily adopt their forms. So I've got the alien version of the ultimate peace offering strapped to my wrist." Ben looked down at the Omnitrix with new perspective. "And I've been using it to punch bad guys." From what Grandpa gathered, Azimuth isn't thrilled about that, Gwen admitted. "But he seemed to accept that sometimes force is necessary to protect others." "A wise perspective," Optimus commented. "True peace is the right of all sentient beings, but sometimes it must be defended through strength." Gwen glanced up at the Autobot leader with newfound respect. "Exactly what Grandpa said. Anyway, Azimuth gave us a device to track the Omnitrix's energy signature across dimensions. When we detected Vilgax's ship making the dimensional jump, Grandpa knew we had to act fast." "So you came alone?" Ben asked, concerned. "Where is Grandpa Max now?" "He's coordinating with other plumbers to secure our side of the dimensional breach," Gwen explained. "I volunteered to come through and find you. The suit protects me from the effects of dimensional travel and boosts my magical abilities." "You shouldn't have taken that risk," Ben said, though he couldn't help feeling touched by her determination. "Like you wouldn't have done the same for me?" Gwen raised an eyebrow. Ben conceded the point with a smile. "Fair enough. So what's the plan? Do we go back to our dimension? Is that even possible? It's possible, Gwen confirmed. But complicated. The breaches are unstable. And according to Azimuth, if Vilgax gets the Omnitrix, both our dimensions could be in danger. That aligns with our concerns, Optimus said gravely. We believe Vilgax has formed an alliance with Megatron, leader of the Decepticons. Together, they represent a threat not only to Earth but potentially to the multiverse. Great, Gwen muttered. Interdimensional team-up of the bad guys. That's never good. We need to contact Grandpa Max, Ben decided. If the plumbers have experience with Vilgax, their intel could be crucial. Agreed, Optimus nodded. Ratchet, can you adapt our communications array to Miss Tennyson's specifications? I'll need to examine her equipment, but it should be possible, Ratchet confirmed. As the others discussed technical details, Ben pulled Gwen aside, suddenly overwhelmed by everything happening. I can't believe you're really here, he said quietly. After all this time, I'd almost given up hope of ever seeing you or Grandpa again. We never gave up on you, Gwen replied, her voice soft but fierce. Not for a single day. Grandpa turned the entire plumber organization upside down looking for you. Even when others said you were probably, dead. Ben supplied with a small smile. Takes more than a dimensional accident to get rid of me. Obviously, Gwen rolled her eyes, but her expression quickly grew more serious. They've taken good care of you, haven't they? The Autobots. Ben glanced over at Optimus, who was deep in conversation with Ratchet about communication frequencies. The best, he said sincerely. Especially Optimus. He's been. I don't know how to explain it. A guardian, a mentor, a friend. He taught me pretty much everything I know about responsibility and courage. I can see that, Gwen nodded thoughtfully. You're different, Ben. More mature, more focused. Still a doofus, she added with a smirk, but a more grown-up doofus. And you're still a know-it-all, Ben countered affectionately. Some things never change. A comfortable silence fell between them, 6 years of separation somehow bridged by the familiar rhythm of their banter. Ben, Gwen finally said, her voice more hesitant, when this is over, are you coming home with me? Back to our dimension? The question hit Ben like a physical blow. It was the same one he'd been avoiding since Gwen's arrival. Return to his original family and dimension, or stay with the Autobots who had raised him for the past 6 years? I don't know, he admitted honestly. I've missed you and Grandpa every single day. But the Autobots are my family too now. And they're fighting a war. They need me. I understand, Gwen said, though disappointment flickered across her face. Just, promise you'll think about it. Grandpa would give anything to see you again. I promise, Ben nodded. And hey, maybe we can work out some kind of interdimensional visitation rights, he added with a forced smile. Their conversation was interrupted by the base's alarm system blaring to life once again. Multiple Decepticon signatures detected. RC called out. They're converging on a location 50 miles north of here. That's the site of the human military's experimental energy research facility, Ultra Magnus noted grimly. Vilgax's energy signature is also present, Ratchet added, checking his scanners. Along with readings similar to Gwen's dimensional transport technology. They're trying to create a stable dimensional portal, Gwen realized. Vilgax must be combining his tech with whatever the Decepticons have stolen. If they succeed, they could transport an invasion force from Vilgax's dimension, Optimus concluded. Or worse, destabilize the barriers between dimensions entirely. We need to stop them, Ben declared, checking the Omnitrix, fully charged and ready. Both our worlds depend on it. Autobots, prepare to roll out, Optimus commanded. This may be our most critical mission yet. As the Autobots mobilized, Ben turned to Gwen. You should stay here where it's safe. Vilgax and Megatron together are bad news. Gwen crossed her arms defiantly. Not a chance. I didn't cross dimensions just to sit on the sidelines. Besides, she added, her hands suddenly glowing with pink energy, I've got a few tricks up my sleeve. Ben grinned, a plan already forming in his mind. Like old times, huh? Team Tennyson against the bad guys. Team Tennyson, Gwen nodded, plus your robot family. I'd say the bad guys don't stand a chance. Autobots, transform and roll out. Optimus called, his massive form folding and shifting into his truck mode. Bumblebee pulled up beside Ben and Gwen, door swinging open invitingly. As they climbed in, Ben couldn't help feeling that despite the danger ahead, something that had been missing for 6 years had finally clicked back into place. Whatever happened next, he wouldn't have to face it alone. He had both his families now, Autobot and human. And together, they were going to save 2 worlds. The energy research facility was already in chaos when the Autobots arrived. Decepticon forces had overrun the perimeter, with Vilgax's drones providing air support. Human military personnel had been evacuated, but the damage was extensive, entire buildings reduced to smoking ruins. Megatron and Vilgax must be inside the main laboratory, Optimus observed as they took cover behind a ridgeline overlooking the facility. That's where the dimensional energy readings are strongest. They've already started the process, Gwen confirmed, her eyes glowing pink as she sensed the energies involved. I can feel the dimensional barriers weakening. Then we need to shut it down fast, Ben decided, activating the Omnitrix. What's the play, Optimus? The Autobot leader assessed the situation with practiced efficiency. Ironhide, Ultra Magnus, RC, engaged the Decepticon forces outside. Draw their attention away from the laboratory. Bumblebee, Ratchet, you'll accompany Ben, Gwen, and myself inside. Our priority is disabling the dimensional technology before a stable portal can be established. Ben cycled through his alien options. I think it's time for a little humongousaur action, he declared, selecting the dinosaur-like alien form and slamming down on the Omnitrix face. Green light enveloped him, but when it faded, a small white and gray alien stood where Ben had been, barely reaching Gwen's knees. Gray matter, the tiny alien squeaked in dismay. Seriously, Omnitrix? Now is not the time for a brain-over-brawn situation. What happened? Gwen asked, staring at the diminutive form. The Omnitrix doesn't always cooperate, Ratchet explained with a hint of exasperation. Ben has limited control over which transformation it selects. Gray matter sighed, his massive brain already analyzing the situation. Actually, this might work out. Gray matter is a Galvan, super intelligent. Maybe I can figure out how to reverse the dimensional technology. Your small size will also allow for covert movement, Optimus noted approvingly. That's the spirit, Gray matter said, climbing up to perch on Gwen's shoulder. Always look on the bright side of a malfunction. Let's move. The Autobots transformed and raced toward the facility, with Ironhide's team breaking off to engage the Decepticon forces head-on. Explosions and weapons fire filled the air as the battle escalated quickly. Optimus led Bumblebee, Ratchet, and Gwen, with gray matter on her shoulder, toward a side entrance of the main laboratory building. They encountered minimal resistance, most of the Decepticon troops had been drawn to Ironhide's diversionary attack. The main lab should be through here, Gray matter directed, his enhanced intellect having memorized the facility's layout from a glance at Ratchet's schematics. But be careful, I'm detecting massive energy fluctuations. Optimus nodded, readying his ion blaster before forcing open the reinforced door. The scene inside froze them all in their tracks. In the center of the vast laboratory stood a glowing, swirling vortex of energy, a dimensional portal already partially stabilized. Megatron and Vilgax stood before it, surrounded by equipment clearly cobbled together from both Earth technology and Vilgax's own dimensional devices. You're too late, Prime. Megatron called out, noticing their arrival. The portal is already operational. Soon, Vilgax's armada will join my Decepticon forces, and both our dimensions will fall. That was not our agreement, Megatron, Vilgax said coldly. The portal is for my use alone until I have secured the Omnitrix. Plans change, Megatron replied with a cruel smile. I've transmitted the coordinates of several Decepticon outposts across your dimension. My forces will secure them while you deal with your personal vendetta. Vilgax's eyes narrowed dangerously, but before the uneasy alliance could fracture further, Optimus spoke. This ends now, Megatron. The dimensional barriers must not be breached. Ah, and you've brought the boy, Vilgax observed, his gaze fixing on gray matter. Though in a rather unimpressive form. Size isn't everything, calamari face, gray matter retorted from Gwen's shoulder. Vilgax's eyes widened slightly as he noticed Gwen. Another human from the prime dimension. Interesting. You must be the cousin Azimuth mentioned. You know Azimuth? Gray matter asked, surprised. Of course. The great Galvan genius who created the Omnitrix. Vilgax's voice dripped with contempt. He thought his precious device would foster peace. I recognize its true potential, an army of unstoppable warriors, each wielding the powers of the galaxy's most formidable species. That's not what it was made for. Gwen protested. Intentions are irrelevant, Megatron interjected. Power belongs to those bold enough to seize it. He raised his fusion cannon. And now, Optimus, you will witness the beginning of a new era, one where the Decepticons rule across multiple dimensions. The battle erupted without further warning. Optimus charged Megatron directly, their massive forms colliding with earth-shaking force. Bumblebee and Ratchet engaged the Decepticon troops protecting the portal equipment, while Gwen created a magical shield around herself and gray matter as Vilgax advanced toward them. I can sense your energy, girl, Vilgax said, studying Gwen with calculating eyes. Anodite heritage, if I'm not mistaken. Powerful, but untrained. Trained enough to handle you, Gwen countered, her hands glowing pink as she unleashed a barrage of energy bolts. Vilgax deflected them with his armored gauntlets, barely slowing his approach. Impressive. You might make a worthy general in my army, after I've broken your will. Not gonna happen, Gray Matter declared, leaping from Gwen's shoulder to a nearby control console. Gwen, keep him busy. I need to shut down this portal. Gwen nodded, creating magical platforms that allowed her to move rapidly around Vilgax, peppering him with attacks from different angles. The warlord was powerful but not particularly agile, giving Gwen a temporary advantage in mobility. Meanwhile, Gray Matter's tiny fingers flew across the controls, his enhanced Galvan intelligence allowing him to quickly grasp the hybrid technology. Fascinating, he muttered. They've combined Earth particle accelerator tech with Cybertronian space bridge components and Vilgax's dimensional shifters. It's actually pretty brilliant, in a tear apart the multiverse kind of way. Across the lab, Optimus and Megatron were locked in brutal combat, neither giving ground. Their ancient rivalry lent every blow extra weight, each strike aimed to disable or destroy. Your obsession with the boy has made you weak, Prime, Megatron taunted as they grappled. Taking on a human child as your own, how pathetic. It is not weakness to care for others, Megatron, Optimus replied, delivering a powerful uppercut that staggered the Decepticon leader. It is the source of true strength. We shall see, Megatron snarled, transforming his arm into a spiked mace that he swung at Optimus's head. The fight between Gwen and Vilgax was growing more intense. Despite her magical abilities, Vilgax's sheer strength and combat experience were slowly overwhelming her defenses. Each impact against her shields drained her energy further. Your cousin hides in his smallest form while you fight his battles, Vilgax observed, breaking through another of Gwen's barriers. Perhaps I chose the wrong Tennyson to target. He's not hiding, fish face, Gwen shot back, creating a magical lasso that briefly entangled Vilgax's legs. He's being smart, something you wouldn't understand. Gray Matter continued his frantic work on the portal controls, aware that Gwen couldn't hold off Vilgax much longer. Almost got it, he called out. Just need to reverse the polarity of the quantum field and, his words cut off as the Omnitrix symbol on his back began blinking red. No, no, no. Not now. In a flash of red light, Ben reverted to human form, at the worst possible moment, perched precariously on the control console. Whoa, he cried, losing his balance and tumbling to the floor. Ben! Gwen shouted in alarm, momentarily distracted, which was all the opening Vilgax needed. The warlord struck with lightning speed, his massive hand closing around Gwen's throat as he lifted her off the ground. Your magic is impressive, child, he acknowledged coldly, but raw power requires discipline to be truly effective. Let her go. Ben demanded, scrambling to his feet even as he checked the Omnitrix, still recharging, its face glowing red. At last, you show your true form, Vilgax said, turning to Ben while maintaining his grip on Gwen. Surrender the Omnitrix, or watch your cousin suffer. Ben froze, caught in an impossible situation. The Omnitrix wasn't ready, Gwen was in danger, and the dimensional portal was still active, growing more stable by the second. Ben, don't. Gwen gasped, struggling in Vilgax's grasp. He'll use it to, her words cut off as Vilgax tightened his grip. Tick-tock, Benjamin, Vilgax said coldly. The Omnitrix for your cousin's life. A simple transaction. Ben's mind raced, desperately seeking options. The Autobots were all engaged in combat, Optimus with Megatron, Bumblebee and Ratchet with the remaining Decepticons. No help would come from that quarter. Okay, Ben said finally, raising his hands. You win, Vilgax. I'll give you the Omnitrix. Just let Gwen go. Ben, no. Gwen protested weakly. Vilgax smiled triumphantly. A wise decision. Approach slowly. Ben moved forward cautiously, mind still working furiously. The Omnitrix was still recharging, useless for transformation. But maybe. I suppose this is fitting, Vilgax mused as Ben drew closer. Your predecessor was equally sentimental about his family. It was his weakness too. You keep mentioning this predecessor, Ben said, trying to buy time. Who was he? Another version of you, Vilgax revealed, seemingly enjoying Ben's confusion. In the prime dimension, your original home, Benjamin Tennyson found the Omnitrix when he was 10 years old. For years, he wielded it against me, preventing my rightful conquest. Another me? Ben's eyes widened in genuine shock. Indeed. When I finally cornered him, he attempted to use the Omnitrix to create a dimensional escape route. The resulting accident scattered both him and the device across realities. Vilgax's eyes narrowed. You received what should have been his fate, raised by these mechanical beings in a dimension not your own. While the Omnitrix found its way to me instead, Ben concluded, the pieces finally clicking together. So there's another Ben Tennyson out there somewhere? No longer, Vilgax said dismissively. The fool perished in the dimensional rift, leaving the Omnitrix adrift until it found you, his counterpart in this reality. Ben absorbed this revelation, feeling a strange connection to this other version of himself he'd never know. A Ben who'd found the Omnitrix at 10, who'd apparently fought Vilgax for years. Enough talk, Vilgax snapped, tightening his grip on Gwen, who winced in pain. The Omnitrix. Now. Ben extended his arm, the Omnitrix still glowing red as it recharged. Let Gwen go first. You are in no position to make demands, Vilgax growled. Maybe not, Ben admitted. But you should know something about the Omnitrix. He allowed a small smile to cross his face. It has built-in security protocols. Before Vilgax could react, Ben slammed his hand down on the Omnitrix, not activating a transformation, which was impossible while it recharged, but triggering something else entirely. Omnitrix self-defense protocol activated, the device announced in a mechanical version of Ben's voice. Initiating energy pulse. A massive burst of green energy exploded from the Omnitrix, striking Vilgax at point-blank range. The warlord roared in pain, his grip on Gwen loosening enough for her to break free, summoning her magic to cushion her fall. "That's new," Ben admitted, as surprised as anyone by the Omnitrix's response. "But I'll take it." Vilgax recovered quickly, rage contorting his features. "You'll pay for that deception, boy." Before he could attack, the entire laboratory shook violently. The dimensional portal, destabilized by the Omnitrix's energy pulse, began to fluctuate wildly, arcs of energy lashing out in all directions. "The portal!" Ratchet called out, having momentarily gained the upper hand against his opponents. "It's becoming unstable." "That's our cue to leave," Ben decided, helping Gwen to her feet. "Can you create a shield to get us to the exit?" Gwen nodded, summoning her remaining energy to form a protective bubble around them. They began making their way toward the door, dodging energy discharges from the increasingly unstable portal. "Optimus!" Ben called out. "The portal's going to blow. We need to evacuate." The Autobot leader, still engaged with Megatron, acknowledged with a quick nod. "Autobots, fall back. Protect the humans." "No." Megatron roared. "The portal can be stabilized." He shoved Optimus aside and raced toward the control console. "Megatron, you fool!" Vilgax snarled. "The dimensional energies are beyond your comprehension." Too late. Megatron reached the controls and attempted to reroute power, but his adjustments only accelerated the destabilization. A massive surge of energy erupted from the portal, engulfing the Decepticon leader in crackling dimensional forces. Megatron's roar of pain shifted, becoming distorted as his very form seemed to waver and stretch, caught between dimensions. In a blinding flash, he vanished entirely, not destroyed, but pulled into the dimensional void. "Fall back." Optimus ordered again as the laboratory began to collapse around them. "The facility cannot be saved." Ben and Gwen raced for the exit, protected by Gwen's magical shield and flanked by Bumblebee. Ratchet and Optimus covered their retreat, holding off the remaining Decepticons and Vilgax's forces. "What about Vilgax?" Ben called back, realizing the warlord was no longer pursuing them. "Attending to his own escape, no doubt," Optimus replied grimly. They burst out of the laboratory just as the dimensional portal reached critical instability. A massive explosion followed, the shockwave knocking them all forward despite Gwen's shield. The entire facility collapsed in on itself, leaving behind a smoking crater where the laboratory had stood. In the distance, Decepticon forces were already retreating, leaderless without Megatron. Ironhide's team regrouped with Optimus, all bearing battle damage but still functional. "Is everyone okay?" Ben asked, picking himself up from the ground. The Omnitrix had finally recharged, its face glowing green again. "We are operational," Optimus confirmed, checking his team. "Though Megatron appears to have been lost to the dimensional void." "Don't count on him staying lost," Ben warned. "Megatron has a habit of coming back when you least expect it." "And Vilgax?" Gwen asked, scanning the destruction. "No sign of him," RC reported after checking her sensors. "He may have escaped through a secondary portal before the main one collapsed. Or he could have been caught in the explosion," Ironhide suggested hopefully. "Either way, the immediate threat has been neutralized," Optimus declared. "The dimensional technology has been destroyed, preventing an invasion from either Vilgax's forces or Decepticon reinforcements." Ben nodded, relief washing over him even as new questions formed in his mind. Another Ben Tennyson had found the Omnitrix first. Had fought Vilgax for years. Had died trying to escape through dimensions. It was a lot to process. "Ben." Gwen touched his arm, concern in her eyes. "Are you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." "Just thinking about what Vilgax said," Ben admitted. "About the other me." "It's weird," Gwen agreed. "But also kind of makes sense." There are parallel dimensions, parallel Earths. Why not parallel Bens? I guess. Ben looked down at the Omnitrix. I just never thought about where it came from before it found me. Who it was meant for. Perhaps it found exactly who it was meant to find, Optimus suggested gently, kneeling beside the two teenagers. In both cases. Ben smiled up at his guardian. Maybe you're right. Different dimensions, different paths, but still somehow connected. Speaking of connections, Gwen said, activating a device on her wrist, I should be able to contact Grandpa now that the dimensional interference is reduced. The device projected a small hologram of an older man with gray hair and a weathered face that Ben instantly recognized despite the years that had passed. Grandpa Max, he exclaimed, emotion welling up unexpectedly. Ben. Max Tennyson's voice wavered slightly as he stared at his grandson through the holographic link. Is it really you, son? It's me, Grandpa, Ben confirmed, swallowing the lump in his throat. A little older, but still me. Thank God, Max breathed, relief evident in his expression. Gwen, are you okay? Did you find Vilgax? I'm fine, Grandpa, Gwen assured him. And yes, Vilgax was here, working with the bad guys from this dimension. But we stopped them, Ben, me, and his other family. The hologram shifted as Max adjusted his device to get a wider view, taking in the massive forms of the Autobots behind Ben and Gwen. I see, Max said, his expression unreadable for a moment before softening. You must be Optimus Prime. Gwen mentioned you in her briefing. Optimus inclined his head respectfully. Max Tennyson. Your grandson has spoken of you often and with great admiration. It is an honor to finally meet you, even under these circumstances. Likewise, Max replied sincerely. I can never thank you enough for taking care of Ben all these years. It has been my privilege, Optimus said simply. Ben watched this exchange with mixed emotions, joy at seeing his grandfather again, pride in Optimus, and a growing awareness of the choice that loomed before him. Grandpa, he began hesitantly, Vilgax might have been caught in the explosion, but if he wasn't. He'll be back, Max nodded grimly. And the dimensional barriers are still unstable, though not as critical as before. We need to address both issues, and soon. Which means we need to decide what happens next, Gwen added, looking at Ben meaningfully. Ben felt the weight of all eyes upon him, Autobot and human alike. Two families, two dimensions, two lives. How could he possibly choose? I need some time to think, he said finally. This is a lot. Of course, Ben, Max said gently. No one's rushing you. But know that whatever you decide, we support you. We just want you to be happy and safe. As do we, Optimus added, placing a reassuring hand behind Ben. This choice must be yours alone. Ben nodded gratefully. For now, let's focus on making sure Vilgax is really gone and the dimensional barriers are secure. One crisis at a time, right? As the group began making plans to return to the Autobot base, Ben fell into step beside Optimus, drawn to the familiar, reassuring presence of his guardian. Optimus, he said quietly, if I do go back with them, to my original dimension. You need not explain, Benjamin, Optimus interrupted gently. Family is precious, a truth I have learned more deeply through raising you. Whatever path you choose, know that you will always have a home among the Autobots. Ben swallowed hard, touched by Optimus's understanding. And you'll always be family to me too, he promised. No matter what dimension I'm in. As they transformed and rolled out from the destroyed facility, Ben rode with Bumblebee as always, Gwen beside him in the passenger seat. Through the window, he watched the familiar desert landscape pass by, a world that had been his home for 6 years. Ahead of him lay an impossible choice between two families, two worlds, and two destinies. But for now, they were together, Autobots and Tennysons united against whatever came next. And somehow, that felt right. Chapter 3, Legacy of Heroes morning light filtered through the high windows of the Autobot base's training room as Ben, transformed into Diamondhead, deflected energy blasts from Ironhide's practice cannons. The crystalline alien form moved with practiced precision, angling his diamond-hard arms to redirect the shots toward automated drone targets. Faster, Ironhide commanded, increasing the rate of fire. A real Decepticon won't give you time to think. Diamondhead grunted, forming his hands into crystalline blades to slice through two drones that had flanked him. Real Decepticons don't shoot tickle beams either, he shot back, but I'm not complaining. From the sidelines, Gwen watched with undisguised fascination. 2 weeks had passed since her arrival, and she still hadn't grown used to seeing her cousin transform into alien beings. His tactical awareness has improved significantly, Optimus observed, standing beside Gwen. When Benjamin first discovered the Omnitrix, he relied primarily on brute force. That sounds like Ben, Gwen agreed with a small smile. Punch first, ask questions, probably never. Optimus's optics crinkled in what Gwen had learned was his version of amusement. Indeed. But 6 months of training have honed his natural abilities considerably. The training session intensified as Bumblebee joined in, transforming between robot and vehicle modes to present Ben with a more dynamic challenge. Diamondhead responded by creating crystal platforms, using the environment to gain tactical advantages as he'd been taught. They work well together, Gwen noted, watching the seamless coordination between Ben and the yellow Autobot. Like they can read each other's minds. 6 years of brotherhood, Optimus explained. Bumblebee was barely more than a scout when Benjamin came into our lives. They have grown up together, in many ways. The Omnitrix symbol on Diamondhead's chest began flashing red. Incoming timeout, he called out, just before green light engulfed him, returning him to human form. Ben, now 16, dropped into a defensive role that Jazz had drilled into him, coming up behind cover as the practice drones continued their assault. Even without alien powers, his movements were fluid and confident, the result of years of Autobot combat training. End simulation, Ironhide commanded, and the drones powered down. Not bad, kid, the weapons specialist acknowledged gruffly, high praise from Ironhide. Your transition protocols between forms are improving. Thanks, Ben grinned, checking the Omnitrix as it recharged. Still wish I had more control over the timeout, though. You're getting better at predicting it, Bumblebee communicated through his radio, piecing together clips to form coherent sentences, a skill he'd perfected over years of communicating with Ben. Ben grabbed a towel from a nearby rack, wiping sweat from his face as he joined Optimus and Gwen. So, what did you think? Impressive, right? He asked his cousin with a cocky grin. It wasn't terrible, Gwen replied with deliberate nonchalance, though the small smile betrayed her. Your Diamondhead form has some interesting tactical applications. Diamondhead is a Petrosapien, Ratchet corrected as he entered the training room, carrying a datapad. Fascinating crystalline biology. Nearly indestructible external structure with surprising flexibility. And he's got these cool crystal shooting powers, Ben added, mimicking the action with his hands. Way better than just being super tough. Gwen rolled her eyes at Ben's enthusiasm but couldn't hide her affection. Despite 6 years apart, they'd slipped back into their familiar dynamic with remarkable ease, like finding a favorite book exactly where you left it. If you're done showing off, she said, Ratchet wanted to run more tests on our dimensional signatures. Again. Ben groaned. These readings are crucial, Ratchet insisted. The dimensional barriers remain unstable. Your grandfather's data suggests the instability is spreading. That sobered Ben immediately. For the past 2 weeks, they've been working closely with Grandpa Max across dimensions, sharing data and developing strategies to address the deteriorating boundaries between realities. The temporary dimensional communicator Ratchet had built allowed for regular contact, but the news had grown increasingly concerning. Is it bad? Ben asked, all traces of playfulness gone. Not yet, Ratchet said carefully. But we're seeing fluctuations across multiple dimensional nodes. If the trend continues, Multiple universes could begin collapsing into each other, Gwen finished grimly. Grandpa says the plumbers have detected similar phenomena in our dimension. Something, or someone, is deliberately weakening the barriers. Ben's eyes narrowed. Vilgax. That remains our primary hypothesis, Optimus confirmed. Despite the destruction of the research facility, we found no conclusive evidence of Vilgax's demise. And Megatron? Ben asked, glancing at the Autobot leader. Also unconfirmed, Optimus replied, his expression darkening slightly. The dimensional energy could have destroyed him, or merely transported him elsewhere. Great, Ben muttered. So our two biggest problems might be out there joining forces again. Or they could be toast, Ironhide pointed out pragmatically. Either way, we prepare for the worst. Agreed, Optimus nodded. Which is why your training must continue, Benjamin. If Vilgax returns, with or without Megatron, we must be ready. Ben straightened, unconsciously adopting a more military posture, something he did whenever Optimus spoke in his commander voice. Yes, sir. In the meantime, Ratchet interrupted, these scans won't perform themselves. Both of you, to the lab. As they followed Ratchet out, Ben caught Gwen watching him with a curious expression. What? He asked. Nothing, she said, then reconsidered. Just, it's weird seeing you like this. All, yes, sir, and military posture. The Ben I remember couldn't even stand at attention for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ben shrugged, a little self-conscious. 6 years with the Autobots will do that to you. Especially with Optimus and Ultra Magnus around. You either shape up or get left behind. It's not a bad thing, Gwen clarified quickly. Just different. You've grown up a lot. We both have, Ben noted, taking in his cousin's more mature appearance and confident bearing. At 16, Gwen had grown into a poised young woman, her magical abilities evident in the subtle energy that seemed to surround her even at rest. Magic suits you, by the way. Weird, but cool. Thanks, Gwen smiled. Grandpa says I take after Grandma Verdona. Still can't believe our grandmother was an alien energy being, Ben shook his head. Though I guess after living with transforming robots for 6 years, nothing should surprise me anymore. They reached Ratchet's lab, where the medical officer had set up an array of scanning equipment. Some was clearly Cybertronian in design, while other components had been adapted from the technology in Gwen's dimensional transport suit. Stand on the platform, Ratchet instructed, indicating a circular pad in the center of the room. Both of you together. I want to compare your quantum signatures directly. As they complied, Ben found himself thinking about the revelations of the past 2 weeks. Learning about his family's secret history with the plumbers. Discovering that his grandmother had been an alien. Finding out that in another dimension, another version of himself had found the Omnitrix years earlier, fighting Vilgax until a dimensional accident had separated them both. You're thinking about him again, aren't you? Gwen asked quietly as Ratchet adjusted his equipment. The other Ben. Ben nodded. Hard not to. If things had gone differently, if I'd found the Omnitrix when I was 10 instead of ending up here. You'd have been him, Gwen finished. Or at least, more like him. According to Grandpa, he was a hero, Ben said, a complicated mix of emotions in his voice. Saved the world multiple times. Had his own team. And then he just vanished. Trying to escape Vilgax. And somehow, the Omnitrix found its way to you instead, Gwen mused. Like it was meant to. That's what Optimus says, Ben agreed, glancing at the device on his wrist. Still feels weird though, wearing something that belonged to another version of me. Hold still, Ratchet interrupted, activating the scanner. Green light enveloped both teenagers, similar to the Omnitrix's transformation energy but gentler. Fascinating, the medical officer muttered, studying the readings. Your baseline quantum signatures are nearly identical, expected for blood relatives from the same dimension. But Ben's has been altered by his time in our reality. And the Omnitrix has created a third layer of complexity. Is that bad? Ben asked. Not bad, Ratchet clarified. But significant. The Omnitrix appears to be serving as a dimensional anchor of sorts. It's partially synchronized with both realities now. Gwen's eyes widened in understanding. That's why Vilgax was able to track it across dimensions. It's not just connected to our home universe, it's actively bridging them. Correct, Ratchet nodded approvingly. Which may explain the increasing instability. The Omnitrix is extraordinarily powerful, and its dimensional resonance could be exacerbating the natural weaknesses in the barriers. So I'm making things worse just by having it. Ben frowned, looking down at the device with new concern. Not necessarily, Ratchet assured him. The Omnitrix alone wouldn't cause this level of disruption. Something, or someone, is deliberately exploiting these connections. But understanding how the Omnitrix interacts with dimensional energy could be key to stabilizing the barriers. Before Ben could respond, the base's alarm system activated, not the full battle alert, but the proximity warning that indicated an incoming message on secure Autobot frequencies. Incoming transmission from Agent Fowler, RC's voice announced over the intercom. Routed to the main command center, Ratchet instructed, shutting down his scanning equipment. We'll continue this later. In the command center, the Autobots gathered around the central communication hub where a video feed displayed a middle-aged human man in a government suit, looking harried. Prime, we've got a situation, Agent William Fowler reported without preamble. Multiple unidentified objects just entered Earth's atmosphere. They're not following any known flight path, and they're not responding to hails. Decepticons? Optimus asked, though his tone suggested he suspected otherwise. Negative, Fowler shook his head. Different energy signature entirely. But they're heading straight for the Axiom Particle Accelerator in Nevada. Ben and Gwen exchanged alarmed glances. That's where they were developing quantum tunneling technology, Ben said. Government project to create stable wormholes for transportation. Or dimensional portals in the wrong hands, Gwen added grimly. Vilgax, Optimus concluded. He survived the facility collapse and is now seeking alternative means to breach the dimensional barriers. The military is scrambling jets, Fowler continued, but if these things are anything like what hit you 2 weeks ago. Standard weapons will be ineffective, Ironhide finished. We need to move now. Autobots, prepare to roll out, Optimus commanded. Agent Fowler, coordinate with the human military to establish a perimeter. No human personnel are to engage directly, this is beyond their capabilities. You don't have to tell me twice, Fowler agreed. After what happened at the research facility, the Joint Chiefs are more than happy to let you take point on this one. Just try not to level the accelerator, it cost taxpayers $11 billion. As the Autobots mobilized, Ben activated the Omnitrix, already cycling through his options. I'm thinking jet ray for this one, he said, selecting the manta ray-like alien with flight capabilities. Fast aerial reconnaissance. Ben, Optimus cautioned, if Vilgax is indeed behind this attack, he will be expecting you. Exercise extreme caution. Always do, Ben assured him with a confidence he didn't entirely feel. Vilgax had nearly defeated him even with Optimus's help last time. But they had no choice, the dimensional barriers were at stake, possibly the integrity of multiple universes. I'm coming too, Gwen declared, activating her transport suit. The advanced technology enhanced her natural magical abilities while providing additional protection. We move together, Optimus decided after a moment's consideration. Benjamin, you and Gwendolyn will provide aerial support and reconnaissance. Bumblebee, Ironhide, and RC, ground assault team. Ratchet and I will coordinate the overall response. Ben nodded, slamming down on the Omnitrix. Green light engulfed him, and when it faded, the red, manta ray-like form of Jet Ray stood in his place. Let's fly. He called out in Jet Ray's nasal voice, spreading his wing-like appendages. Beside him, Gwen created a glowing pink platform of magical energy beneath her feet, rising into the air. "Try to keep up, cousin," she challenged with a smile. "As if you could match Jetray's speed," Ben retorted good-naturedly, launching himself skyward with a powerful flap. The Autobots transformed into their vehicle modes below, engines roaring to life as they prepared to roll out. Despite the danger ahead, Ben felt a surge of exhilaration. Fighting alongside both the Autobots and Gwen, his two families united, felt right somehow. Whatever Vilgax was planning, they would face it together. The Axiom Particle Accelerator facility sprawled across the Nevada desert like a massive scientific temple, a ring-shaped complex nearly 17 miles in circumference, surrounded by support buildings and protected by multiple security perimeters. Under normal circumstances, it represented the pinnacle of human achievement in particle physics. Today, it was a battlefield. From his aerial vantage point, Jetray surveyed the chaos below. Vilgax's drones had already breached the outer security perimeter, engaging with military forces that had established defensive positions around the main facility. Further in, a larger ship had landed directly on top of the accelerator's primary control building. "I've got visual on the main assault force," Jetray reported through the Omnitrix's communication function. "At least 30 drones, similar to the ones that attacked the base. And something big landed on the control center, probably Vilgax's command ship." "Any sign of Decepticon activity?" Optimus asked, his voice clear despite the distance. "Negative," Jetray replied, executing a tight aerial turn to avoid detection. "This looks like all Vilgax's tech. If Megatron survived, he's not showing himself." "Don't assume he's out of the picture," Ironhide cautioned over the comms. "Megatron survived worse than a dimensional hiccup." Jetray continued his reconnaissance, Gwen following on her energy platform at a more cautious distance. Her magic wasn't as fast as Jetray's flight, but it allowed her greater versatility in observation and defense. "The accelerator itself appears undamaged," Gwen reported, using magical sight to peer through the facility's structures. "But there's energy building in the control systems, they're powering it up." "That accelerator wasn't designed to breach dimensional barriers," Ratchet warned. "If Vilgax attempts to modify it for that purpose, the results could be catastrophic." "We need to shut it down," Optimus decided. "Autobots, converge on the facility. Benjamin, Gwendolyn, continue aerial surveillance but do not engage directly. We need more information before committing to an assault." Jetray acknowledged the order, though part of him itched to dive into battle immediately. 6 months with the Omnitrix had given him confidence in his alien forms, perhaps too much at times. But Optimus's caution was well-founded. Vilgax had nearly defeated them all during their last encounter. "Ben, look!" Gwen called out, pointing toward the far side of the accelerator ring. "Something's happening." Jetray turned sharply, his keen vision zooming in on the area Gwen had indicated. A section of the accelerator was glowing with unusual energy, not the blue-white of normal particle acceleration, but a sickly green that reminded Ben of the dimensional portal from the research facility. "He's already started," Jetray realized aloud. "Vilgax is using the accelerator to punch through the dimensional barriers." "We're still 5 minutes out," RC reported from the ground, where the Autobot strike team was racing toward the facility. "Can you delay him?" Jetray exchanged a glance with Gwen, who nodded grimly. "We'll try, but be ready for anything. If this is a trap." "It almost certainly is," Optimus confirmed. "Proceed with extreme caution." Jetray accelerated, his aerodynamic form cutting through the air at nearly supersonic speeds. Gwen followed, her magical platform leaving a trail of pink energy as she pushed her powers to match his pace. As they approached the glowing section of the accelerator, Jetray slowed, circling cautiously overhead. The facility's roof had been torn open, revealing the massive accelerator tube beneath. Standing beside it, manipulating controls that had been forcibly integrated with alien technology, was Vilgax. "There he is," Jetray whispered, hovering just out of detection range. "And he's alone, no Megatron, no major backup. Just the drones keeping the military busy. That seems too easy, Gwen said suspiciously. Why would he expose himself like this? Because he wants the Omnitrix, Jet Ray realized. He's counting on us showing up, on me showing up. Then we disappoint him, Gwen decided. We wait for the Autobots and attack together. Jet Ray nodded, but as he watched, the green energy emanating from the accelerator intensified. Sensors built into his alien form detected radiation levels spiking dangerously. We can't wait, he said grimly. That thing's about to breach. If it does. I know, Gwen bit her lip. But Ben, if he captures you, he won't, Jet Ray assured her with more confidence than he felt. I just need to disrupt the equipment long enough for Optimus and the others to arrive. Hit and run, nothing fancy. Before Gwen could object further, Jet Ray dove toward the facility, his body streamlined for maximum speed. As he approached, he opened his mouth and fired concentrated neuroshock beams, one of Jet Ray's more useful abilities, targeting the alien technology Vilgax had attached to the accelerator controls. The beams struck with precision, causing explosions and electrical discharges as delicate equipment overloaded. Vilgax roared in fury, spinning around to locate his attacker. Tennyson, the warlord bellowed, his eyes locking onto Jet Ray's airborne form. Right on schedule. Sorry to crash your dimensional party, Vilgax, Jet Ray called down, firing another series of beams that forced Vilgax to take cover. But I'm pretty sure you didn't file the proper paperwork for this little science experiment. Foolish child, Vilgax snarled. You've delivered exactly what I wanted, yourself and the Omnitrix. With unexpected speed, Vilgax deployed a weapon from his gauntlet, not aimed at Jet Ray, but at the accelerator itself. Energy surged through the massive ring, the green glow intensifying to near-blinding levels. What are you doing? Jet Ray demanded, recognizing too late that his attack had played into Vilgax's hands somehow. Creating a dimensional nexus, Vilgax replied with cold satisfaction. And you, Benjamin Tennyson, have just provided the final component, the Omnitrix's unique energy signature. The accelerator's glow suddenly expanded outward in a wave, enveloping the entire facility. Jet Ray tried to escape, but the energy moved too quickly, washing over him like a tide. To his shock, it didn't harm him, instead, it seemed to resonate with the Omnitrix, causing the symbol on his chest to pulse brightly. Ben! Gwen's voice called from beyond the energy field, her magical platform unable to penetrate the growing barrier. Stay back! Jet Ray shouted, feeling the Omnitrix respond strangely to whatever Vilgax had done. Something's wrong with, his words cut off as the Omnitrix symbol began flashing rapidly, not the normal timeout warning, but an erratic pattern he'd never seen before. Pain shot through his body as the transformation began to destabilize. The Omnitrix recognizes the dimensional frequencies, Vilgax explained, advancing confidently. It was created to bridge genetic differences between species. With the proper modifications, it can bridge dimensions just as easily. What have you done to it? Jet Ray demanded, struggling to maintain his form as the transformation flickered. Merely awakened its true potential, Vilgax replied. Your predecessor never understood the full power of the device he carried. Neither did Azimuth, for all his genius. The Omnitrix is more than a transformation tool, it is the key to universal dominance. A final surge of energy pulsed through the accelerator, and the green barrier expanded outward in all directions. As it did, the fabric of reality itself seemed to tear, not in one place, but dozens. Swirling portals opened throughout the facility, each showing glimpses of different dimensions. In that moment of distraction, the Omnitrix finally timed out. Green light engulfed Jet Ray, returning Ben to human form, but the process felt wrong, painful in a way transformations never had before. The great hero, reduced to his true form, Vilgax mocked, towering over Ben. Now, the Omnitrix belongs to me. Before Vilgax could grab him, a massive pink energy blast struck the warlord from behind. Gwen had managed to pierce the barrier, her eyes glowing with concentrated magical power. "Get away from my cousin," she shouted, unleashing another barrage of energy bolts. Vilgax staggered but didn't fall, turning his attention to Gwen with a snarl of annoyance. "The Anodite hybrid. Your interference grows tiresome." While Vilgax was distracted, Ben checked the Omnitrix. Instead of its usual red recharging state, the face was flickering between multiple colors, the internal mechanisms making sounds he'd never heard before. "Come on, work with me here," he muttered, tapping the device desperately. "I need something big and strong. Humongosaur, 4 arms, anything." To his surprise, the Omnitrix responded, not by activating a transformation, but by projecting a small hologram of a diminutive gray alien with bulbous eyes. "Benjamin Tennyson," the hologram spoke in a crotchety voice. "If you're seeing this message, the Omnitrix has detected critical dimensional instability. The safeguards have been compromised." "Who are you?" Ben asked, ducking behind a piece of equipment as Vilgax and Gwen continued their battle nearby. "I am Azimuth, creator of the Omnitrix," the hologram replied impatiently. "This emergency protocol was programmed in case of exactly this type of catastrophic misuse. Vilgax is attempting to use the Omnitrix as a dimensional focus point, something it was never designed to do." "Tell me something I don't know," Ben said, wincing as an explosion rocked the facility. "How do I stop it?" "You cannot, not directly," Azimuth's hologram stated flatly. "Once initiated, the dimensional cascade will continue until stability is restored or total collapse occurs. But the Omnitrix contains a fail-safe for precisely this situation." "What fail-safe?" Ben asked desperately. "A reset function that will re-establish dimensional barriers by using the Omnitrix's own energy to repair the damage," Azimuth explained. "But be warned, activating this protocol will have consequences. The Omnitrix will be temporarily depowered, and the dimensional distortion may affect your personal timeline." "What does that mean, affect my timeline?" Ben demanded. The hologram flickered as another explosion shook the building. "No time to explain. To activate the fail-safe, press and hold the Omnitrix face while rotating the dial clockwise 3 times, then counterclockwise twice. Speak the code phrase, Omnitrix Sequential Dimensional Override, Authorization Tennyson Prime." "Wait." Ben called, but the hologram had already disappeared as the Omnitrix's face continued to flicker erratically. A crash nearby drew his attention back to the battle. Gwen was putting up a tremendous fight, her magical abilities having grown impressively over the years. But Vilgax was simply too powerful, shrugging off attacks that would have incapacitated lesser opponents. "You fight well for a half-breed," Vilgax acknowledged as he deflected another energy blast. "But you are merely delaying the inevitable." "That's kind of what heroes do," Gwen retorted, creating multiple energy constructs that attacked Vilgax from different angles. "Delay the inevitable long enough to change it." Outside the facility, Ben could hear the sounds of a new battle erupting. The Autobots had arrived and were engaging Vilgax's drone forces. But the dimensional barrier Vilgax had created was keeping them from reaching the accelerator itself. Ben looked down at the Omnitrix, considering Azimuth's instructions. A reset function that could repair the dimensional damage, but at what cost? And what did affecting his personal timeline mean? Before he could decide, the facility shook with a much larger explosion. Part of the roof collapsed, revealing the sky above, and something massive descending through the dimensional barrier. "No," Ben breathed, recognizing the distinctive shape of the Nemesis, the Decepticon warship. He survived. The ship hovered ominously over the facility, its weapon systems already targeting the Autobots below. From its underside, a figure detached and fell toward the accelerator building, a massive silver form that transformed mid-air before landing with earth-shaking force. Megatron had returned. Vilgax, the Decepticon leader roared, his voice carrying even over the chaos of battle. "You dare attempt to harness dimensional power without me?" Vilgax turned from his battle with Gwen, seemingly unsurprised by Megatron's arrival. You were supposed to have perished in the dimensional void, he said coldly. You underestimated me, Megatron replied, his optics gleaming with malice. A common mistake, and often the last one my enemies make. Gwen used the distraction to retreat to Ben's position, her magical shields flickering with fatigue. Ben, are you okay? She asked breathlessly. I'm fine, he assured her, but the Omnitrix is going haywire. And now we've got Megatron to deal with too. The Omnitrix, Megatron's keen audio receptors had caught Ben's words. Yes, the device that makes you so special, boy. Vilgax speaks of it with such reverence, a tool of unimaginable power. A power that belongs to me, Vilgax asserted, moving to position himself between Megatron and the teenagers. Our arrangement was clear, Megatron. The Omnitrix for me, this dimension for you. Arrangements change, Megatron replied dismissively. Especially when one party attempts betrayal. As the two warlords faced off, Ben realized they were momentarily focused on each other rather than their original targets. It might be their only chance. Gwen, he whispered, I need to get to the main accelerator controls. The Omnitrix has a failsafe that might fix the dimensional damage, but I need to be at the focal point. Gwen nodded, understanding immediately. I'll create a diversion. When I give the signal, run for it. Before Ben could object, Gwen stepped forward, her hands glowing with renewed magical energy. Hey! Robo-Jerk and Squid Face, she called out. You two going to argue all day, or actually do something? Both villains turned toward her, momentarily united in their annoyance at the interruption. The girl has spirit, Megatron acknowledged with a cold smile. Perhaps we should demonstrate what happens to those who mock their betters. For once, we agree, Vilgax growled. Gwen winked at Ben before unleashing her most powerful spell yet, a massive burst of pink energy that expanded outward in a blinding flash, temporarily disorienting both Vilgax and Megatron. Now, she shouted. Ben sprinted toward the accelerator controls, weaving through debris and equipment. Behind him, he heard Gwen continuing her assault, keeping the villain's attention focused on her rather than him. He reached the control panel where Vilgax had integrated his alien technology, the Omnitrix still flickering wildly on his wrist. Following Asmitha's instructions, he pressed and held the face while rotating the dial, clockwise 3 times, counterclockwise twice. Omnitrix sequential dimensional override, he recited, hoping he remembered correctly, authorization Tennyson Prime. For a heart-stopping moment, nothing happened. Then, the Omnitrix stabilized, its face glowing with pure white light instead of the usual green. Energy began flowing from the device into the accelerator systems, overriding Vilgax's modifications. No! Vilgax roared, noticing too late what Ben was doing. Stop him! Megatron, quicker to react, fired his fusion cannon directly at Ben. The blast would have been fatal, but a pink barrier materialized just in time, Gwen, using the last of her strength to protect her cousin. The impact shattered her shield and sent her flying backward, unconscious but alive. Gwen! Ben called out in alarm, instinctively moving toward her. Complete the override, a familiar voice commanded. Optimus Prime had somehow breached the dimensional barrier, forcing his way into the facility despite the energy field. The Autobot leader engaged Megatron directly, buying Ben the time he needed. You never learn, Prime, Megatron snarled, meeting Optimus's charge with equal force. Always sacrificing yourself for these inferior creatures. That is where you are wrong, Megatron, Optimus replied, his battle mask engaging as he landed a powerful blow. There is no sacrifice in protecting those you care for, only purpose. Ben turned back to the controls, the Omnitrix now pulsing rhythmically as energy continued to flow into the accelerator. The dimensional portals that had opened throughout the facility began to fluctuate, some closing while others expanded. What have you done? Vilgax demanded, advancing on Ben with murderous intent. Reset the game, Ben replied with determination. The Omnitrix is fixing what you broke. Impossible. Vilgax lunged forward, but his movement suddenly slowed as dimensional energy began swirling around him. The Omnitrix cannot, can and is, Ben interrupted, watching as the energy intensified. Looks like you didn't understand it as well as you thought. The entire facility was now bathed in white light emanating from the Omnitrix, the accelerator humming with power as it channeled the energy. The dimensional portals began closing one by one, reality reasserting itself as the barriers stabilized. But something unexpected was happening too. As the dimensional energy flowed through the Omnitrix and into the accelerator, new images appeared in the few remaining portals, not of alien dimensions, but of familiar faces. Ben saw glimpses of Grandpa Max, of his parents, of his home from 6 years ago. And in the largest portal, he saw himself, a slightly different version, older, wearing a different model of the Omnitrix. This Ben Tennyson was surrounded by allies Ben didn't recognize, fighting enemies he'd never seen. The other me, Ben realized with a shock. He's alive. Before he could process this revelation, Vilgax made a desperate final lunge, breaking through the dimensional energy to grab Ben's arm, the one bearing the Omnitrix. If I cannot have the Omnitrix, the warlord growled, then neither shall you. Pain shot through Ben's arm as Vilgax attempted to forcibly remove the device. In 6 months, the Omnitrix had never budged from his wrist, bonded at some fundamental level that even Ratchet couldn't fully explain. Let go. Ben shouted, struggling against Vilgax's grip. Ben. Optimus called out, still locked in combat with Megatron but desperately trying to reach his ward. The Omnitrix, responding to the threat, suddenly pulsed with blinding intensity. The energy that had been flowing into the accelerator reversed direction, creating a feedback loop that enveloped both Ben and Vilgax. What is happening? Vilgax demanded, his grip faltering as dimensional energy coursed through him. I don't know, Ben admitted through gritted teeth, but I'm pretty sure you're not going to like it. The energy condensed around them, forming a perfect sphere that separated them from the rest of the chaos in the facility. Inside this bubble, reality itself seemed fluid, time slowing to a crawl. Benjamin, a voice spoke directly into Ben's mind, not azimuth this time, but something else, something within the Omnitrix itself. The dimensional reset requires a focal point. A choice. What choice? Ben asked, still struggling against Vilgax's weakening grip. Your timeline has been fractured, the voice explained. The dimensional barriers can be restored, but the fracture point, you, must be resolved. 2 paths lie before you now. Suddenly, Ben understood what azimuth had meant about his personal timeline being affected. The dimensional damage had somehow split his existence, creating a version who had found the Omnitrix at 10 in his home dimension, and the version he was now, who had been raised by the Autobots for 6 years. I have to choose, he whispered. Stay here or go home. Yes, the voice confirmed. But know that once chosen, the other path will be sealed forever. The multiverse cannot sustain this particular divergence any longer. The bubble of energy expanded, showing Ben glimpses of both possible futures. In one, he continued with the Autobots, fighting alongside them against the Decepticons, a human raised in a world of transforming robots. In the other, he returned to his original dimension, reunited with his family, becoming the hero the other Ben had been. What about Vilgax? Ben asked, noticing that the warlord was frozen in place, caught in the dimensional flux. His fate is tied to your choice, the voice replied. Choose your path, Benjamin Tennyson. Time grows short. Outside the energy bubble, the battle raged on. Optimus and Megatron remained locked in combat, neither able to gain a decisive advantage. The other Autobots had breached the facility perimeter, engaging both Decepticon forces and Vilgax's remaining drones. Gwen was beginning to stir, her magical abilities slowly regenerating. Ben closed his eyes, weighing the impossible choice before him. Both paths called to him, the family he'd lost and the family he'd found. How could anyone be expected to choose between them? I can't, he said finally, opening his eyes with newfound determination. I won't choose one family over the other. There has to be another way. There is no other way, the voice insisted. The dimensional fracture must be healed. Then heal it, Ben challenged, but not by erasing half of who I am. The Omnitrix adapts, right? It finds solutions. So adapt now. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, the energy surrounding them began to shift, changing from white to green, the familiar color of the Omnitrix's transformations. Possibility detected, the voice acknowledged, sounding surprised. Alternative solution available. Warning, outcome uncertain. Story of my life, Ben replied with a small smile. Do it. The energy surged, expanding outward from the Omnitrix in waves that rippled through the entire facility. Ben felt a strange sensation, as if his very being was being reconstructed at the atomic level. Beside him, Vilgax roared in pain or fear, perhaps both. Outside the bubble, everyone froze as green light engulfed the accelerator complex. The dimensional portals that had been closing suddenly stabilized, but instead of showing random dimensions, they all focused on a single reality, Ben's original home dimension. The largest portal, the one that had shown the other Ben Tennyson, began to pulse rhythmically, synchronized with the Omnitrix on Ben's wrist. Through it, Ben could see Grandpa Max staring in shock, surrounded by unfamiliar technology. Ben. Max's voice somehow carried through the portal. Is that you? Grandpa. Ben called back, his voice similarly transmitted. I'm here. What's happening? Max asked, his face a mixture of hope and concern. The dimensional readings are off the charts. Before Ben could respond, the energy bubble surrounding him and Vilgax collapsed, the dimensional reset reaching its completion. The Omnitrix gave one final pulse before returning to its normal state, the face glowing green once more. Vilgax, released from the dimensional stasis, staggered backward. What have you done? He demanded, his voice weaker than before. Fixed what you broke, Ben replied, standing taller as he felt strength returning to his limbs. And found a third option while I was at it. The battle around them had paused, all eyes drawn to the stable portal that now dominated the center of the facility. Through it, more figures had joined Grandpa Max, plumbers, by the look of their equipment, and others Ben didn't recognize. Benjamin, Optimus called, momentarily disengaging from his battle with Megatron. Are you functional? Better than functional, Ben assured him with a growing smile. I think I just found us a doorway. Impossible, Vilgax hissed, eyeing the portal with a mixture of rage and disbelief. The dimensional barriers cannot be selectively stabilized this way. Tell that to the Omnitrix, Ben countered. Turns out it's even more amazing than you thought. Before Vilgax could respond, a new voice came through the portal, older, confident, but unmistakably familiar to Ben's ears. Need a hand over there? Asked the other Ben Tennyson, stepping into view beside Grandpa Max. He was older than Ben had expected, perhaps in his early 20s, wearing a sleek green and black uniform with a more advanced version of the Omnitrix on his wrist. You're alive! Ben exclaimed, unable to contain his surprise. Vilgax said you died in the dimensional accident. Vilgax says a lot of things, the older Ben replied with a smirk. Most of them wrong. I got lost between dimensions for a while, but Grandpa and Azimuth found me eventually. Tennyson. Vilgax roared, his fury overriding his weakened state. Both versions, this cannot be. And yet, here we are, the older Ben replied coolly. He raised his Omnitrix, which looked more streamlined than Ben's version. What do you say we finish this, once and for all? Ben nodded, raising his own Omnitrix. I'm thinking this calls for a double dose of hero time. My thoughts exactly, his counterpart agreed with a grin. On both sides of the portal, the two Bens activated their Omnitrixes simultaneously. Green light engulfed them both, and when it faded, two very different aliens stood in their places. Ben had transformed into Humongousaur, the dinosaur-like form he'd been trying for earlier. His counterpart had become something Ben didn't recognize, a crystalline being similar to Diamondhead, but with a more evolved appearance. Ultimate Diamondhead, the older Ben explained, noting his counterpart's confusion. Long story, involving an evolutionary function. I'll explain later. Vilgax, realizing he was now facing two Omnitrix wielders, one of whom he'd apparently been fighting for years, began backing away. This isn't over, he snarled. The Omnitrix will be mine. Not today, Calamari Breath, Humongousaur replied, advancing with thunderous steps. And not ever, Ultimate Diamondhead added from the other side of the portal. Vilgax glanced between them, then at the still open portal, clearly calculating his odds. With a final growl of frustration, he activated a device on his gauntlet, a teleportation system similar to the one he'd used to escape their last encounter. This is merely a delay, he declared as his form began to shimmer. I will return, and next time, yeah, next time you'll win, Humongousaur interrupted with a dismissive wave of his massive hand. Heard it before. Still waiting. With a final snarl of rage, Vilgax vanished, teleported back to his ship, most likely. But Ben knew this wasn't truly over. Vilgax would return, as would the threat to the dimensional barriers. For now, though, they had won. And more importantly, they had found a way to connect the two dimensions without destroying either. Fascinating, Ratchet commented, approaching the portal cautiously after dispatching the Decepticon drone he'd been fighting. A stable interdimensional gateway, anchored by the quantum signature of the Omnitrix itself. Is it permanent? Optimus asked, still keeping one eye on Megatron, who had backed away to reassess the situation. Unknown, Ratchet admitted. But the energy readings suggest it could be maintained indefinitely with proper support from both sides. A doorway between worlds, Humongousaur said thoughtfully, the implications dawning on him. I don't have to choose. Exactly what I was thinking, Ultimate Diamondhead agreed from the other side. Why pick one dimension when you can have both? Megatron, who had been observing silently, suddenly laughed, a cold, metallic sound that drew everyone's attention. How touching, he mocked. The boy believes he can have everything, both worlds, both families. His optics narrowed dangerously. But portals work both ways, Prime. Consider what this means for our ongoing conflict. It means the Autobots just got reinforcements, the older Ben called through the portal, his crystalline form glinting as he stepped closer to the boundary between dimensions. The plumbers have been dealing with threats like Vilgax for generations. The Decepticons aren't any more impressive. We shall see, Megatron replied ominously. He transformed into his jet mode and rocketed skyward, rejoining the Nemesis hovering above. This is far from over, Prime. The Decepticon warship began to withdraw, having sustained significant damage during the battle. The remaining drones followed, retreating now that both Vilgax and Megatron had abandoned the field. As the immediate threat receded, the Omnitrix timed out, returning Ben to human form in a flash of red light. On the other side of the portal, his counterpart similarly reverted, revealing a young man who looked remarkably like an older version of himself, same green eyes, same unruly brown hair, though styled differently. So, the older Ben said, breaking the momentary awkward silence. This is weird, right? Not just me. Definitely weird, Ben agreed with a relieved laugh. But compared to everything else that's happened in the last 6 years, maybe not even in the top 5. 6 years with giant transforming robots will do that to you, Gwen commented, finally recovering enough to join them. She stared through the portal at the older Ben, shaking her head in amazement. 2 Bens. The multiverse must have a twisted sense of humor. Tell me about it, the older Ben replied with a grin. Though I have to say, Robo-Ben here seems less annoying than I was at 16. Autobotraised, Ben explained with a shrug. Optimus doesn't tolerate much attitude. Speaking of Optimus, the Autobot leader approached cautiously, studying the portal and those visible through it with undisguised wonder. Max Tennyson, he said, recognizing the older man from their previous holographic communications. It seems we are meeting in person sooner than anticipated. Optimus Prime, Grandpa Max replied with equal respect. Looks like our families just got a lot more connected. The word families hung in the air, carrying weight beyond its simple meaning. Ben looked between them, Grandpa Max and the older version of himself on one side of the portal, Optimus and the Autobots on the other. Two worlds that had shaped him, now miraculously connected. So what happens now? Ben asked the question on everyone's mind. Is this portal really stable? It appears to be, Ratchet reported after further scans. The Omnitrix is acting as an anchor point on both sides, your version and his. He nodded toward the older Ben. As long as you both exist and the Omnitrixes remain functional, the doorway should persist. We'll need to establish proper protocols, the older Ben suggested, slipping into a leadership role that felt natural to him but strange for Ben to witness. Security, scheduling, communication systems. Agreed, Optimus nodded. While this connection presents tremendous opportunities, it also creates vulnerabilities that both Megatron and Vilgax will seek to exploit. We can handle that, Grandpa Max assured them. The plumbers have experience with interdimensional security. As the others began discussing practical matters, Ben found himself stepping closer to the portal, studying his older counterpart with undisguised curiosity. So you're the original owner of this thing, he said, gesturing to the Omnitrix on his wrist. Former owner, the older Ben corrected with a small smile. It chose you now, same as it chose me back then. Different dimensions, same DNA, the Omnitrix responds to Tennyson genetics. Vilgax said you died trying to escape him through dimensions, Ben said, still trying to reconcile the story he'd been told with the living person before him. I nearly did, the older Ben admitted, his expression sobering. I was desperate, cornered. Used the Omnitrix in a way Azimuth had specifically warned against. The resulting dimensional fracture scattered pieces of the Omnitrix across multiple realities. He nodded toward Ben's wrist. That version found you, recognized compatible DNA, and bonded. Meanwhile, I was trapped between dimensions for what felt like years, though time works differently in the void. How did you get back? Ben asked. Grandpa never stopped looking, the older Ben replied with evident affection. And Azimuth eventually figured out how to track my quantum signature. They pulled me out about 2 years ago, your time. Been rebuilding since then. He raised his wrist, showing a more advanced version of the Omnitrix. Azimuth made me this new one, with better safeguards this time. Ben nodded, absorbing this information. So there are 2 Omnitrixes now. 2 Bens. Seems that way, his counterpart agreed. Which means twice the heroes, twice the options. And twice the targets for guys like Vilgax, Ben added grimly. Hey, we just kicked his butt across 2 dimensions, the older Ben pointed out. I'd say we make a pretty good team. Before Ben could respond, Optimus approached, placing a reassuring hand behind him. Benjamin, the Autobot leader said gently, I believe you have a choice to make. Ben looked up at his guardian, understanding the unspoken question. With the portal now stable, he could choose to return to his original dimension, to live with Grandpa Max, to reunite with his parents, to reclaim the life that had been interrupted 6 years ago. Or he could remain with the Autobots, continuing the fight against the Decepticons, honoring the family that had raised him through his formative years. Actually, Optimus, Ben said slowly, an idea taking shape, I don't think I do have to choose. At least, not in the way you're thinking. He gestured to the portal, which hummed with stable energy. This isn't just a temporary window, it's a permanent doorway. I can live in both worlds now. Fight alongside the Autobots against the Decepticons, and help the plumbers against threats like Vilgax. That's, actually not a bad idea, the older Ben acknowledged, rubbing his chin thoughtfully. Having someone who understands both sides could be invaluable. A liaison between dimensions. You would split your time between 2 worlds. Optimus asked, his tone revealing neither approval nor disapproval, just thoughtful consideration. I already have 2 families, Ben replied simply. Why not 2 homes to go with them? Gwen stepped forward, placing a hand on Ben's shoulder. It could work, she suggested. Ben spends time in each dimension, learning from both. The plumbers could benefit from Autobot technology and tactics, and the Autobots could use plumber experience with aliens like Vilgax. An alliance across dimensions, Grandpa Max mused from the other side of the portal. Unprecedented, but potentially revolutionary. Optimus considered this for a long moment, his optics shifting between Ben and the figures visible through the portal. If this is truly what you wish, Benjamin, he finally said, the Autobots will support your decision. You have earned the right to forge your own path. Thanks, Optimus, Ben said sincerely, relief washing over him. But no matter what, you'll always be my guardian. That doesn't change just because I'm spending time in another dimension. The Autobot leader nodded, and Ben could have sworn he saw emotion in those ancient optics. And you will always have a home with us, Optimus assured him. For as long as you wish it. So it's settled then, the older Ben declared, clapping his hands together. Interdimensional timeshare. 2 Bens, 2 Omnitrixes, 2 worlds working together. Megatron and Vilgax won't know what hit them, Ben agreed with a growing smile. As the others began discussing the practical details of this unprecedented arrangement, Ben found himself standing at the threshold of the portal, not quite in either dimension, but connected to both. 6 years ago, a dimensional accident had torn him from his original family. Now, through another dimensional anomaly, he had found a way to reconnect without losing the new family he'd gained. The Omnitrix glowed softly on his wrist, fully recharged and ready for whatever came next. Ben smiled, thinking of how far he'd come from that scared 10-year-old hiding from giant robots. Raised by Optimus Prime, wielder of the Omnitrix, bridge between dimensions, his story was only just beginning. Looks like it's hero time, he murmured to himself. In every universe. 1 month later, Ben stood on a hill overlooking the Autobot base, watching the sunset paint the desert in gold and crimson. The dimensional portal had been relocated inside the base, secured and stabilized with technology from both worlds. A similar facility had been constructed on the other side, within a plumber base where the older Ben operated. The arrangement was working better than anyone had dared hope. Ben split his time evenly between dimensions, 1 week with the Autobots, 1 week with Grandpa Max and the plumbers, with flexibility for emergencies on either side. He'd reunited with his parents, an emotional meeting that had involved many tears and explanations. Though they struggled to understand the full scope of his experiences, they had welcomed him back with unconditional love, accepting both his connection to the Autobots and his new role as an interdimensional hero. Training continued in both worlds, combat tactics with the Autobots, Omnitrix mastery with his older counterpart, whom everyone had taken to calling Ben Prime, to avoid confusion. The dual education was intense but fulfilling, expanding Ben's capabilities beyond what either world alone could have provided. Thought I'd find you here, Gwen said, joining him on the hilltop. Unlike Ben, she had chosen to return to their original dimension permanently, though she visited the Autobot world regularly. Sunset watching becoming a habit? Optimus taught me, Ben explained with a small smile. Said sometimes warriors need moments of peace to remember what they're fighting for. Smart robot, Gwen acknowledged, sitting beside him. They watched in comfortable silence as the sun dipped below the horizon, the first stars appearing in the darkening sky. Any regrets? Gwen finally asked. About the arrangement, I mean. It can't be easy, living between worlds. Ben considered the question seriously. It's complicated, he admitted. Sometimes I feel pulled in too many directions. But then I remember the alternative, having to choose one family over the other, and this seems like a miracle in comparison. Gwen nodded understanding. You know, when you disappeared 6 years ago, Grandpa said something I never forgot. He said, Tennysons create their own paths, even when the universe doesn't provide one. Sounds like Grandpa, Ben smiled. That's exactly what you did, Gwen continued. When forced to choose between dimensions, you created a third option. Very Tennyson of you. I learned from the best, Ben replied. Both human and Autobot. The communication device on Ben's wrist, separate from the Omnitrix, beeped softly. Ben, this is Ratchet. When you have a moment, Optimus would like to speak with you. On my way, Ben responded, rising to his feet and offering Gwen a hand up. Duty calls. Always does, Gwen agreed as they headed back toward the base. Inside, they found Optimus in the command center with Bumblebee and Jazz, studying reports from their global monitoring network. Benjamin, Optimus acknowledged as they entered. We've detected unusual energy signatures in the Arctic Circle. Potentially Decepticon activity, though the pattern is atypical. Want me to check it out? Ben asked, already mentally cycling through which alien form would be best suited for Arctic conditions. I believe a reconnaissance mission would be prudent, Optimus confirmed. However, there is an additional complication. Similar energy signatures have been detected in your home dimension, according to data shared by the plumbers. Coordinated activity across dimensions? Gwen asked, immediately grasping the implications. Vilgax and Megatron working together again? The evidence suggests that possibility, Optimus nodded gravely. Which is why this may require a joint operation. Ben smiled, already reaching for his communicator. I'll contact Ben Prime and Grandpa. Sounds like we need teams on both sides. I anticipated your response, Optimus said with a hint of pride. The dimensional portal is already being prepared for transit. Bumblebee, Ironhide, and I will accompany you to the Arctic. Jazz and Ratchet will coordinate with plumber forces in the other dimension. Just another day spanning multiple realities, Ben quipped, though his expression was serious. We've got this, Optimus. The Autobot leader looked down at his human ward, no longer a child, but a young man growing into a hero of two worlds. I have no doubt, he said simply. As they moved toward the portal chamber where the dimensional gateway hummed with energy, Ben felt the familiar weight of responsibility and the equally familiar thrill of adventure. 6 years ago, a dimensional accident had separated him from everything he knew. Now, that same dimensional power had given him something unique, a legacy spanning realities, families in two worlds, and a purpose greater than he could have imagined. Raised by Optimus Prime, wielder of the Omnitrix, bridge between dimensions, Ben Tennyson was ready for whatever the multiverse had in store. The Omnitrix glowed green on his wrist, ready to transform him into whatever hero was needed. But the greatest transformation had already happened, the scared 10-year-old boy becoming something more than either world alone could have shaped. Ready? Optimus asked as they prepared to step through the portal. Ben nodded, standing tall beside his guardian. Always. Let's roll out. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.